This is what I'm here for. This is my job. Again, I'm on 4 hours of sleep, so I don't know that I can actually get through it correctly, but let's see. Shall we give it a try?
Yes, let's go. Go team.
Welcome back to Splice Splatter, everybody, the film podcast presented by the Jean Cocteau Cinema. We're classic horror.
It's modern gore.
And we're your hosts. This is Al.
Hi.
I'm Siena. I don't know why I thought that we were each introducing each other.
We're just, every day we're just winging it. We're really just improv in life over here.
There you go. That's the optimistic take on it. I like that. And what are we talking about today, Al?
We're talking about, I'm talking about Disturbia.
And I'm talking about Rear Window, which are, as you said, kind of the same film. Although, as I was thinking about, because I got to watch these back to back. Did you watch these back to back?
I absolutely did not. This week it's the week after the holidays. We're in between Christmas and
rough,
New Year's. And I don't know where I am. Yeah. There's red lights.
I don't know when I am. I don't know if I am.
I don't know how. Did we say how?
Good question. I don't know.
So yeah, I watched Disturbia first. I actually watched it again last night just because I love the movie. And then I watched Rear Window yesterday.
Okay. Oh wait, so you did watch them both on the same day?
Well, it is back to back.
When are you?
We're not doing great.
So
buckle
up.
Yeah. Buckle up. You are also all on house arrest with us while we talk about
truly. So you don't have a choice.
You're stuck with us now.
This is our plan from the beginning. Great. We're off to a great start. Do you want me to start you off with a tidbit? I have Hitchcock tidbits. I also have Saltburn tidbits because I can't stop myself.
Which I finally watched. So me and Siena, we won't say anything on this just for people who haven't seen it yet.
I won't spoil anything.
But we are both obsessed, and it is now our personality. We actually got hyped for this podcast this morning to a Spotify playlist called Ragerette Saltburn.
Yep.
So
we're now considering getting Saltburn tattoos.
Yes. It's really taken over our lives.
It started as a joke, but it's becoming all too real. Two things. One, I had this thought at 3 a.m. last night when I couldn't fall asleep.
Of course, the witching hour. Got it.
Is Saltburn the first good for him film? You know, there's the good for her horror
good
trope.
For him.
It's a good for him film, right?
It really feels like that at the end.
Well, and again, we're not going to give it. I'm not saying which him. I'm not saying how.
Or when him.
Or when him. If him.
It's good for him.
But it's a good for him film.
Funny. I have to rewatch it a few more times.
And secondly,
Secondly,
I know I ran this by you earlier.
Oh, okay.
But
yes,
we've got to share it with.
Yeah, it's a
we've
good
got
tidbit.
to share it with the folks. I know I've been. All of my friends now are sending me any Saltburn TikTok they come across anytime they see one. So I've been seeing a lot of people talking about the little marionette stage with the cat and family players on it. Again, without giving anything away, allow me to just point out that the party scene, which again, this is shown in the trailer, so I'm not spoiling anything for anybody.
Just fast forward for the next 30 seconds.
Or just fast forward for the next 30 seconds if you want to be safe.
1, 2, 3, go.
That stage is recreated life-size on the lawn during the party scene when Farley and Oliver are having their little confrontation when Farley's in disguise. They're having that entire conversation on a life-size replica of the Cat and Family Players stage, which I somehow didn't notice this entire time until last night at 3 a.m.
It's so layered, that film.
It really...
I just can't. I'm on my third
rewatch. When is this?
So I want to sit down and watch it with more of a critical eye. I kind of had watched it, put it on the background for this morning, and then while I was wrapping Christmas presents, and now I want to sit and deep dive
very
into
much.
it. Yeah.
I mean, I think part of the joy of it for me is that as a filmmaker and a film person, you stop being able to enjoy movies in the same way a lot of the time because you can't get out of the analytical part of your brain, and Saltburn just completely turned that off. I was just so along for the ride and that doesn't happen that often, which is also part of what I love about horror. Is good horror, if it really scares you, it turns off that analytical part of your brain and you're just in it, right?
Yeah.
So
terrified for your life.
Terrified for your life. That's what we're going for. That's what we're here to chase.
Check us out. Put us in fear.
Yes, please. Scare us.
We don't want the real horrors of life. We want the fictional / also sometimes real ones.
There you go.
Any more tidbits?
I do have more tidbits. Moving into some Hitchcock tidbits. I wanted to find something that was Rear Window adjacent, but not specific to it. So, Jimmy Stewart, star of Rear Window, starred in a bunch of other Hitchcock movies. He was in Rope, he's in Vertigo, and he thought he was going to be in North by Northwest. Oh, no. Hitchcock, however,
was Hitchcock, I'm assuming.
Was Hitchcock. He, when Vertigo was not a commercial success, Hitchcock decided that this was Jimmy Stewart's fault.
Yes, because, no, it definitely was not any other factors.
No other factors there. And not just Jimmy Stewart's fault, not even that he, was blaming the performance or anything. He was just he's looking too old. He's gotten a little too wrinkly.
How old was he, though? Question.
I think, early 40s, which is not atypical for male movie stars at that time.
Right.
So it's also, it's...
Okay.
It's very layered.
Got it.
There's a lot to unpeel in the Hitchcock onion. We'll put it that way. But he thought that Jimmy Stewart was too old, and so decided that he wouldn't have him in any other movies ever again. But they were friends, good friends, and so he didn't want to tell him this. And so he just progressively ghosted him over the course of several months to a year until Jimmy Stewart took the role in Bell, Book, and Candle.
Yeah.
And then was like, that's why I'm not casting you. It's because you're in Bell, Book, and Candle. Now we're going to shoot.
Right, totally.
So
he was waiting for that perfect, he's like, I got it. It's a long game.
Yeah. So he basically waited until Jimmy Stewart was took another project to start his own shoot. So
Bad
that
friends.
I know.
Just be like, dude,
so
the wrinkles, the thing. Also coming from Hitchcock.
From Hitchcock of all people. It's
I just his face flash in front of my eyes. I'm like, wait, that man saying that?
Pot meat kettle. Yeah.
Men.
So just men. Men.
Shocked? No.
No. Horrified?
All the time. Daily.
Again, it's what we're going
funny.
for.
Oh my God. Hitchcock, chill out.
Yep. So that's my tidbit for you. Do you have any tidbits?
Nope.
Great.
I have a film full of tidbits.
Oh, yeah.
With
Also,
Disturbia.
which of us is starting today?
Me.
Oh, perfect.
It's me. So we're starting.
Good. I have some time.
We're speaking of Saltburn, we're back into that time in 2007. So
the naughties.
The naughties.
Have you not heard it called that?
No,
I hate it.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
I learned that fact and now it's leaving my brain.
Good.
So we'll
Ignore
move on.
it. Let's all pretend I didn't say that.
All right. So Disturbia, speaking of being disturbed.
Again, we're doing great.
So really just bless you all listening right now. So Disturbia came out in 2007, April 13th of 2007.
Was that a Friday the 13th, perhaps?
I hope.
I'd imagine it's usually a release date is on a Friday, and I feel like if you're releasing Disturbia and you choose the 13th,
brilliant. That worked out nicely for them.
I think it's got to be. We're saying it's a Friday.
We're
the
saying
13th.
Friday the 13th.
Executive decision.
So obviously the title is a play on the words Disturbed and Suburbia.
Mm-hmm.
If we all didn't know that, it was directed by DJ Caruso, which if you're not familiar with him, he directed I Am Number 4. XXX, Return of Xander Cage, and then also directed numerous episodes of TV series like The Shield, Over There. Never heard of that one.
Neither.
Over There.
It's a terrible name for a TV
name.
show.
What are you watching? Over There. What?
Yeah, that's a real who's on first situation right there.
Smallville and Dark Angel.
Okay.
And then a majority of his films are actually in the thriller and action genre, so this is kind of very much the blend of those two things.
Interesting.
And it was written by Christopher Landon and Carl Ellsworth. Christopher Landon is awesome. He wrote most of the Paranormal Activity found footage horror series. This dude's done a lot of stuff.
Which also, I'm a huge Paranormal Activity fan. I think they're highly underrated as filmmaking.
Oh, on a Sunday, cleaning around the house.
Comfort movie.
Throwing on Paranormal Activity. You're just like, oh, look, just a little security cam in the back.
The little
I feel like the
footsteps
creep.
appearing. Yeah.
He also wrote the comedy horror film Happy Death Day, which is like more recent, Scout's Guide to Zombie Apocalypse, and We Have a Ghost, which is also like a newer one that came out this year, I believe, on Netflix.
We love a horror king.
We love a horror king. He also came out as gay later in his career and has a really cool,
we love a gay horror king.
We love a gay horror, screenwriter. So he's quoted saying, "I may fall off of some lists because of my sexuality, but if that happens, then I don't really want to be on that list anyways." And I really liked that quote.
It boosts you in our list, honey.
Yeah, he said that, and like, you know, obviously with Hollywood being homophobic, it's like, oh, if you're gay, well, you can't write the straights. Yeah. Actually, yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Also, I'm not even that interested in the straights, to be honest.
Is that the fun story we're looking for?
Again, going back to Saltburn. Great.
Someone do a ticker of how many times we mentioned Saltburn.
Dangerous drinking game there.
The other writer on this was Carl Ellsworth, and he did Red Eye.
See, I'm wondering. Okay, this is a weird tangent. I tried to hunt this down. I couldn't find out. I wonder if he's related to Barry Ellsworth, who lives in Santa Fe. He was the cinematographer for a lot of Todd Haynes' early movies. And now owns a gallery in town. That's I think the Ellsworth Gallery.
The way this town works,
I wouldn't be surprised, right? So anyway, just like a weird little. I saw the last name and I was like, is that a Barry connection?
If someone finds that, we'll pop that in here.
Pop in a shout out to Barry.
So Carl, any relation to Barry? We don't know. Ellsworth wrote Red Eye. He wrote Disturbia, obviously, is what he's known for. And then the 2009 Last House on the Left, which I just realized.
Look at that.
Hint, hint, wink, wink. We might be doing one of those. We'll let you know at the end. So production designer was Tom Southwell. He was best known for doing art department in Blade Runner, the original Blade Runner, X-Men. He was also on I Am Number 4 with the director.
So they had some collaborations before.
And then Mission Impossible. And then he was the conceptual artist on The Sandlot, Gremlins 2, and Arachnophobia, and was the illustrator on the 1979 Muppet movie.
Oh my God, what a fun career.
I watched some DVD features, like behind the scenes features, and he popped up and has some, moments talking, and he just seems like such a cool dude. God. And also like goes such a roster of like cool films and stuff. So.
And in such sort of, like you can see some through lines between them, but they're all very different too.
Bit, yeah. We have Roger Stofers.
Oh, interesting.
There's always one name I'm like, what? Yeah. Was a cinematographer. Did School of Rock. Let's rock tonight.
Anything Jack Black, I'm so in for.
And then on the flip side, no offense, enough with Jennifer Lopez. Which, she had her time. Yeah. She had her time.
No comment.
And then executive producer, the man of Hollywood, Steven Spielberg.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Everything he is
gold.
Turns,
Was his name in the credits and I missed it, or is he not credited?
I didn't watch the credits all the way through this time. I'm going to be honest. I was noting away at the end and just listening to the music.
Rough week.
We barely got there. Yeah, we're recording on Friday for the first time.
We're not here right now.
So going through the cast list, it's starring Shia LaBeouf as Cale.
I'm curious, what are your Shia LaBeouf reference points? Like when you hear Shia LaBeouf, what do you associate him with?
Louis Stevens. Even Stevens.
Yeah, that tracks.
Is that not yours?
No. Because this is why I wrote it down, because it was like, I know I have very
artsy
weird...
film do you have in here that he was in?
American Honey and Nymphomaniac.
Oh.
That's
I
my
don't
Shia
know
LaBeouf.
Nymphomaniac, actually. American Honey, though.
I love Nymphomaniac Parts 1 and 2 by Lars von Trier more than I think almost anybody has any right to love Nymphomaniac. So I don't know that I can recommend it, but
he is mesmerizing to watch in anything.
Yeah, and it's a very interesting role for him that I think he is very well cast in it. I'll say that and leave it at that. But,
okay. Yeah. No, my reference points. Holes.
Yes. I should have remembered that.
I was gonna say. Oh, this is really out myself here.
Yes.
In high school. Oh boy.
Yes.
I have.
Bring us back,
and
Al.
I really, really wish that I had them, but I don't have them. Luckily there's other people that's seen them that know that I'm not making this up. Okay. And this is really who I am. I have about 6 to 8 front to back full notebooks. Like
Oh
8.5 by 11 of Hole's fan fiction I wrote in high school.
Okay. Since you are outing yourself here, I will out myself that
I don't know if you can go deeper than Hole's fan fiction, but go ahead.
I'll do you one worse.
Oh, God. I'm still probably not going to think it's as bad as this, but I would love to hear.
Well, I think it's more embarrassing just because it's more...
Love it.
Yeah.
Please take the embarrassment off me for a second.
That's what I'm here for. Somewhere out there in the deep internet, hopefully I've managed to scrub its presence. Oh, gosh. But I'm not convinced that I've done that thoroughly enough.
I'll let you know. I'll look it up.
No. It's not attached to my name, so it's going to be hard to find. But there may or may not be an old Tumblr of mine out there that is nothing but... See, this is why it's embarrassing. It's all Sherlock fanfic, but also like meta-analysis, like film commentary on it.
That tracks.
Which that's the
Sherlock,
embarrassing part to me.
Benedict Cumberbatch?
Of course.
Oh my God.
Of course. Who do you think you're talking to?
If you're listening to this, we all went through the Sherlock Benedict Cumberbatch phase.
Again, I think
my God, but Moriarty?
Andrew Scott.
I know.
Okay, again, I think this is a queer femmes thing. Where, like, if you didn't have a thing for Sherlock Benedict Cumberbatch with the, like, long, girly hair. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like,
what are you doing?
What are you doing? Yeah.
Okay,
so,
that's... Holes, Siena.
Okay.
Holes.
I think they're pretty
Boys at Camp Green Lake.
Yes.
Hector Zeroni being carried up the mountain. Eartha Kitt. She should have been in my family.
This is honestly, this is why we were meant to be friends.
I know. I think it was all culminating up to this. So yeah, Shia LaBeouf, Even Stevens, and Holes.
Great.
I threw in one more. What did I throw in? Transformers. He's done so many better films. But like, that's what people are like.
Yeah.
Again, I gave nobody any new information with those three.
Good.
Oh boy.
We gave people new information about ourselves, which we are certainly going to regret. But
take it to the grave. Nobody tell anybody.
Good.
We have David
between us.
Yeah, we're moving on. David Morse as Robert Turner, who's the creepy neighbor that we're introduced to. He was in The Green Mile, The Hurt Locker, World War Z, Contact,
Fun fact, producer or executive producer of The Hurt Locker lives in Santa Fe. And
there's always
stuff
something
at the film festival.
No way.
Yeah.
We've passed by.
I know. This town has a crazy number of film-related people in it.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's
anyway, continue.
Yeah, that's very cool. I was going to say, my fun fact, I couldn't remember the name of Contact for a while. I used to call it Lenses.
Oh my God.
Moving on again.
I'm
Sarah Romer.
I think that might be the first time we've gotten a reaction from Warren that's been visible to us.
I was like, that film Lenses with... You're welcome. You can call it that.
Good.
I swear it's just coffee in my coffee cup this morning.
I'm unconvinced.
We have Sarah Romer as Ashley Carlson, who is the new neighbor, the new hot girl next door that moves in.
Has she been in anything else?
She's been in a bunch of kind of like, she's kind of almost like a mini scream queen, I'm going to call her. She was in this film called Asylum, which has really bad reviews, but I put it on one day, and like sometimes you put on a mediocre horror film you've never seen, and you're like, that kind of hit.
Yeah.
So Asylum,
interesting.
I didn't remember it actually until I looked it up on IMDb. I always forget the name of that movie, but I remember that day so vividly. I watched like a bunch of horror movies. I put that on. So love her. She's also in The Grudge and The Grudge 2 as Lacey.
Interesting.
And she has a little cameo piece in one of my favorite films of all time, which is Wrist Cutters, A Love Story. She's one of the girls in the little like pool hall scene that they have.
Oh my God.
So,
how funny. I love Wrist Cutters.
Yeah, it's so good. So she kind of popped around a little bit. That's what I know her from the most.
Interesting. I'm glad you brought that up, because I did feel like I recognized her from something.
Yeah, she has one of those faces where if you see her in something, you're like, I know she's been in something else.
Yeah.
We have Carrie Ann Moss as Julie, the mom. I was like, they gave her a name. I'm like, did they ever?
I don't think we ever actually hear it. Yeah.
So she's in a bunch of really cool stuff. She's in the Matrix series as Trinity.
What I was thinking.
Yeah, she's in Memento. So maybe that. Yeah,
I love Memento.
I gotta rewatch that one because that's so good. And she's also in Chocolat as well.
Oh, very cool.
She's in a bunch of stuff, but those are some
the
ones that I have seen her in. We have Aaron Yu as Ronnie, which is the friend in this, the kind of like extra comic relief.
Yep.
And he's in a bunch of indie films as well, including Nick
super familiar.
Yeah, he's in Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist.
Oh, yep.
He's so good at that. I love that film. Rocket Science and The Whackness with Josh Beck and Mary-Kate Olsen. The oceans. Of the oceans.
Oh, no.
We have Viola Davis as the detective, which I was like, hi, hello,
I had
casual.
To pause for a second and be like, is that fucking Viola Davis? And I have a note in here being like, how weird to watch something from the dark days when Viola Davis was getting characters without names.
Totally. And that's what I thought too. I was like, what? I had to go on IMDb and be like, what stage of this had to have been before she was Viola Davis?
It was. And it's like,
she was doing a bunch of bigger stuff at that time, but I think she had a bunch of projects that came out around this time.
So maybe this was like right in the rise.
Yeah. The rise of Viola Davis. Which is weird to think because it just feels like she's always been.
Yeah, she's one of those people who just feels like so ubiquitous that I can't remember a time when there wasn't a Viola Davis.
Totally.
My
yeah, I had to like pause and like turn and was like,
okay, I'm glad I wasn't the only one who had that moment.
So a description of this film is a teenager who is placed on house arrest for assaulting a high school teacher and begins to spy on his neighbors, believes one of them is a serial killer. We kind of said it.
There.
Yeah. It's partially inspired by Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window, but we read which now I'm blanking.
Oh,
they're actually both
They're both based on a short story by Cornell Woolrich from 1942 called "It Had to Be Murder."
It Had to Be Murder. Yeah. Yes. So they're, it's funny because, and I'll get to it. Like, it's one of the last little points I have. I have like a little button on that.
Oh, interesting. Oh, perfect to lead us right into Rear Window.
Yeah. Actually, it'll be
how well you planned that. I love it.
I've done this a couple times. But yeah, so it's very loosely based on the idea of, they're very much similar with the big, aspects of it. But
the overall shape of the story.
Yeah, but I think
there's a lot of interesting differences. And I'm excited to talk about that too, because I feel like this is one where we've got more opportunity to kind of like compare and contrast the films directly to each other than we've been able to, which is fun.
Yay.
Yeah.
So we'll start with some stats. It was, so overall it like has received generally positive reviews. I'm a huge fan of it. I just can always put this movie on. I saw it in theaters.
Oh, I was gonna ask.
I saw it in theaters. It was like one of my first DVDs that I owned. Aww. Again, I used to on Monday nights I would horseback ride, and so I had lessons. And it was when the new Even Stevens episodes would come out, and I would record them on VHS and then watch them. So like when this came out, I was like a huge, and then Holes, and then I was just a huge Shia LaBeouf fan. So like when this came out, it was like my personality. I would be in my room just saying all the lines. Yeah. As we do.
Yeah. As absolutely.
I pretended I was there. I would do interviews. So
amazing. Wait, you would do it. Okay, we'll come back to that later.
Come back to that. Off camera.
Off mic. Off air.
This had a budget of $20 million, which
that feels high.
High-ish.
I'm gonna say that feels high.
But when we dive into it, with all the thought that went into this, I actually do think, for an action thriller, we had a Shia LaBeouf was going into Transformers, like he was he was already pretty big. I'm like, probably the budget was him.
That's probably true.
There's a lot of cool actors in this.
Yeah. Well, and I think also it's probably, I imagine they might have had some costs related to the killer's house set.
Yeah.
Just because there's
a lot going on.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah. So budgeted $20 million and it grossed $118 million.
Pretty good.
Damn. So it had 37 million worldwide, and then 80 in North America. So that's what gets us to the 118. It was originally rated R.
Oh, funny, because I know I messaged you beforehand, and I was like, I think this is our first PG-13 film that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Did they have to cut it to make it a PG-13, or what happened?
I don't know if they had I think it was done initially. I want to say, I couldn't find anything about why, but I want to say it's because they wanted it to be I know they wanted it to have a larger audience because Shia LaBeouf.
Right.
And I think they knew the things he was going into and what he was coming
there
from.
Would be teens
so if they did the R,
get.
like they're probably cutting most of their audience at that point.
Good point.
So I think they just knew, like, hey, if we're gonna actually get, like, don't cut out your audience.
Yeah.
You know,
if you're going for teenage Shia LaBeouf, you want to get the teenagers in.
Yes. Yeah. So it remained number 1 at the box office for 2 weeks. It actually opened with 22 million is what it made in its opening. So it made its budget back.
Yeah, that's a great opening.
And then the next 2 weeks, it was number 1 at the box office, and it grossed another 13 mil and then 9 mil. And then in its 4th week, it collected almost 6 mil. So it finished second behind the record-breaking Spider-Man 3, which made 151. So I think for
not bad,
this kind of weird thriller.
Yeah, it's sort of in between genres too, which is usually a little bit harder.
Absolutely.
In some ways, because it's not, it's not straight horror, but it's also not a direct thriller or a direct mystery. It's like got elements from a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So
which was very, very intentional going into this project.
And feels very kind of connected to the source material too. Which is kind of also in this in-between
very
space.
much in between space. So Christopher Landon wrote this script originally in the 1990s.
Oh, interesting.
Which I was surprised by because it feels like a very fresh.
And it feels very of the aughts too.
Yes. Yeah. So he wrote it in the 90s. And it was first optioned in the 90s.
Interesting.
But then the studios decided to let the option expire because Christopher Reeves did a remake of Rear Window in 1998. Right. So they were like, we're good. We already got one of these. Like Christopher Reeves, R.I.P., is in it. So like, we'll just let it kind of like ride out, which is like bummer, man.
I wonder if that's part of why they took out the leg injury and made it an ankle monitor instead, is because there was that Christopher Reeve adaptation so recently that they wanted something a little different.
That's not why.
So correct me.
Yeah, so it was actually rewritten in 2004 because Christopher Landon heard an NPR show discussing Martha Stewart being on house arrest.
That's why there's all the Martha Stewart jokes. That's so funny.
Yeah, they put that joke in there too.
Oh my god.
She says, she's like, I like what this whole Martha Stewart thing you got going on. It's like, that's the joke.
I had to pause that for a second because I'd forgotten that had already happened at this point.
Now she's just besties with Snoop Dogg.
That's so weird. Who could have predicted?
She had to get her street cred before they could be friends. her plush, like cushy ankle monitor mansion house arrest.
There you
cred
go. That's
be friends with Snoop.
Street cred.
Yeah. The Beverly Hills street cred. So he heard that and was like, he was kind of like, I'm already a voyeur as a director. I think
we all are
watching. I just like human nature is being a voyeur. And he just like, after hearing that, and it was like, what would it be like to just spy on my neighbors all the time? And it was like, okay, let me do some rewrites, make it fresh.
I thought you were gonna say, let me do some research.
I'm pretty sure he did.
I'm sure he did that as well, but.
And so the new script was sold in 2004 to the Montecito Picture Company, and they brought it into development with DreamWorks Studios. So, it's always kind of funny to see these scripts kind of get let go, let right out, and like no one wants it, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, here's this fresh script. And they're like, cool.
Yeah.
And only a few years later, like 1998 to 2004.
Not a huge gap in as far as development hell goes.
Yeah. So
interesting. Well, also, it was so weird seeing the DreamWorks logo at the beginning of this because I don't associate them with this kind of film.
Oh yeah,
it's like I think of cartoons usually when I think of DreamWorks. Like
I suppose nowadays,
movies. Yeah. So Anyway.
Siena's thoughts.
I don't know. Just planting seeds.
And just like a little, if you also like Fright Night, the 1985 Fright Night, it kind of has a very similar feel. So if you're looking for this, in both, there's like a teenage boy who spies on a neighbor with binoculars, like something suspicious going on. So it's kind of got the same. And then again, going to DreamWorks, making stuff like this in 2011, they actually did another remake of Fright Night. So they're very much like on track to, we like this. This works for us. People enjoy this.
People like voyeurism.
No one likes to admit it, but we all do.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's what movies are.
Absolutely. Yeah. So director DJ Caruso heard about this project because once again, we have another film. Hi, ring, ring, hello, it's Steven Spielberg, and I'm calling you, and you need to make this film and read this script. And he's like, Steven Spielberg? Like, is this a joke?
As we've said it before, and we'll say it again, when Steven Spielberg calls, you answer.
And you say yes.
Yes, exactly.
So he gets that call. I'm waiting for mine, Steven. I'm not making anything. So Steven Spielberg was like, read the script. Let me know what you think. I think it'd be really cool, and I really want you to do it. And so DJ's like, sure.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like you don't even need to read the script at that point. You're just like, yes, Mr. Spielberg. Whatever you say, Mr. Spielberg.
So he read the script and kind of said to himself, again, talking about the multiple genres in this, he said to himself, if I can make this a blend of John Hughes meets Say Anything teen angst romance movie and combine it with a thriller, that I'd be making something I haven't seen before.
Funny. Oh, that's so interesting, because I wrote down that it feels like this leans a little bit more towards romance than Rear Window.
It feels like a teen rom-com.
It does.
And then just like injected in it is this like fun mystery thriller, like, you know,
that almost feels like it kind of like swerves into the story at a certain point, you know?
Yeah, because it kind of sets you up with all these tropes of like, you feel like it feels very familiar.
Yeah.
But then there's that twist.
Which I think, to be fair, Rear Window also, at the beginning, it feels like a classic 50s sex comedy. Like it feels like it's like in line with like Bringing Up Baby, or like those kinds of like marriage rom-coms, or just like relationship comedies. And then the murder just kind of swings in about a half an hour into the story.
Yeah, it takes a while for that one to lift off.
Kind of kick in. Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think they both kind of start from this sort of like almost frothy place, which is not something that we
frothy places.
When you say it like that. I brought us here. I take full responsibility.
So DJ Caruso, I think it was kind of cool. He liked this script. Frothy places. I'm sorry, I'm trying to move on from that.
You can't.
How do you segue from that? Speaking of frothy places, DJ Caruso found that this would be like a fun exercise as a director for him.
Oh, there you go.
He liked the aspect of bringing these elements together and these genres together to create something that like he personally has never seen. So it very much, I feel like you can feel the love of this film. And just even as we move through with some of these facts, I feel like this film is so good because everyone was so thoughtful, more so than I thought. Because again, I've watched it. I watch it with fun entertainment eyes of like, I'm just going to enjoy this. And it's kind of cool to see how much they cared about it, which is probably why it's just translated to like why I care about this film so much.
But it's interesting, again, going back to that, like once you've like worked in film and like gone to film school, like it changes the way you watch movies. But something
you really have to turn that brain off sometimes.
But because this is something you watched before that, I think there's probably also still like a little bit of like you can still access that place.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah, before I really just took all those classes
before the horrors,
before the life horrors.
The life horrors, yeah.
So Spielberg, so Shia liked the idea of this cross genre, again coming kind of from, you know, I feel like this was, so it was right before Transformers, right before Indiana Jones, so like it was really the takeoff. He was doing like indie films. Again, he's always just been so good. And you know, his like, I think his mom was like a circus performer.
Oh, interesting.
Growing up, so he just like grew up in this very like colorful, creative world where I think he's had a lot of like freedom. I think he just, as an actor, I feel like he just sees the world differently.
Yeah.
So
he's an oddball.
Yeah, he's an oddball. So he really liked this idea, and Spielberg arranged for Shia to be on the casting shortlist for this film because he saw his work in holes. So you're welcome.
I feel
Steven Spielberg also likes holes. He probably would have loved my fan fiction.
I was just going to say, did you write fan
that's
fiction
where
in
I'll
which
get my
Steven
call.
Spielberg made an appearance? Yeah.
That's how I get my call.
Exactly. We figured it out, Al. Know what you're doing after this.
Putting it online. Oh my god, I actually forgot about that.
Oh my God, it's so full circle.
So full circle, like a hole.
It's all, no.
So Caruso,
like a frothy place.
I was just gonna say, I was like, do we go there? So
I'm gonna take us there.
Okay, we'll just get this. Yeah, this film, this podcast just can't go anywhere online.
Pull it together, Siena. Pull it together.
So Caruso auditioned hundreds of actors for this for about 5 weeks. Finally settling on Shia. I don't know if maybe he was brought in later in the casting process, but he was really looking for someone who guys would really like and respond to because he wasn't going to be such a pretty boy. So that was,
it's almost like a guy next door type of thing.
And he does. He feels I feel like I grew up with I went to school with those boys.
Totally. Especially in that point in time. My first year of high school was 2009, so 2 years after this, but it was that same kind of period of
totally. Yeah.
Yep.
That's it's copy paste of every boy we went to high school with.
Exactly.
And so LaBeouf was attracted to this role also because DJ Caruso had done The Salton Sea, which he said is one of his favorite films, at least of the time. He was saying that was one of his favorite films. So he was like, yeah, of course I want to work with this guy. And I like the script. And Steven Spielberg wants me to be in it.
Good list of incentives there.
And so before filming started, Caruso and Shia actually watched Rear Window for inspiration. They watched Straw Dogs.
Oh, interesting.
And The Conversation.
Have you seen The Conversation?
I can't remember if I know what The Conversation is.
It's, oh my God, I fucking love The Conversation. It's, it has a murder in it. It's not a horror movie. So I don't know if I can recommend it to Splice and Splatter fans necessarily, but is that Francis Ford Coppola? I want to say it's Coppola.
We got a thumbs up from Warren.
Oh, good. Thank you, Warren. It's the idea behind it is kind of blow up for audio. It's this, audio recorder who thinks he's recorded a conversation about a murder.
Yes. Okay. I want to say in film school that was something that was
makes sense.
Upon.
Yeah, it's incredible audio work.
Oh, cool. I'll check it out. Or I might not watch it, but I might watch a trailer.
There you go. I think you'd really like it. I think it would be up your alley.
Nice. So yeah, they watched that in preparation.
Love it.
And then they watched Say Anything, of course, because that's where he was. So they kind of wanted to mix all of those movies together.
Interesting combination of films. From Straw Dogs to Say Anything. That's
there's a lot.
Wide
it
spectrum.
Leaps. This leaps. Yeah. But I think he's just
But it is
inspired.
right smack dab in the middle of those two.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah. So filming took place from January 6, 2006 to April 29th, 2006. So they shot for about 4 months.
Okay.
Which I think is actually, there was a lot of action in this. I feel like there was, a lot of stuff. And I feel
a
like
lot
4
of
months.
choreography.
Yeah. So
I can understand that. I mean, again, Shining shot for 14. So by comparison.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think that's why I pay attention to this. I'm in comparison to Shining.
Yeah. So everything feels short.
So this came out a year after they shot it, which is pretty standard. It was filmed in the same house as Zathura, A Space Adventure.
Oh, funny.
For those who know what that is, I don't.
For the OGs out there.
And that was in Pasadena, California.
Interesting.
So during this filming, like I said, Shia was kind of preparing for his roles in Transformers and Indiana Jones, so he was getting a little bit buffer. So I think we got him right before he
Would you say he was LaBeouf?
All right, and thanks for listening to Splice Splatter.
I am fired now.
So he almost didn't get the boy next door role. If he would have been too LaBeouf for this role. I'm
so sorry, everyone. God, where do we go from here?
So you may ask, how did he prepare for this role?
How did he prepare for this role, Al?
He talked to people on house arrest, as you do.
I mean, I guess they've got a lot of time free to talk.
He actually locked himself in a room.
So we went method with it.
He went a little method with it, and so did another actor in this too. But so he put like a ankle bracelet on to feel like the confinement of house arrest. In an interview, he was quoted saying, "It's hard." Duh.
Articulate, Shia.
He said, "I'm not going to say it's harder than jail, but it's tough. House arrest is hard because everything's available. Temptation sucks, and that's the torture of it." So he did really get like...
He's not wrong.
Yeah, it's, so I thought it was interesting. He like kind of did a little bit of method.
That's cool.
Didn't fully deep dive.
I mean, he is also a teenager. I don't know what I'm expecting out of him. Some, like, treatise on incarceration.
I was gonna say, he was like 19 in this.
Yeah,
so.
fair.
And then there's also a very famous like Twinkie tower stack scene.
Incredible.
Which was from when he was, on his own house arrest.
Oh my God. Was this an actor edition?
He actually, he had just built that, and
That's
so
so
they included
funny.
it in
here.
here.
I love those kinds of things. Those are the sort of details I feel like when you cast the right actor, they'll be able to bring things like that to the story.
Absolutely. And DJ Caruso, as I move through this again, he gave that freedom to the actors, which is why I think this film feels so organic.
Totally.
So Shia LaBeouf did his little method acting, and then we also have the actor David Morse, who plays the neighbor and like who we suspect of murder, Mr. Turner. He and Shia had no contact on set while filming this.
Interesting.
David Morse felt that if they had any sort of conversation or kind
like
of rapport,
yeah.
he would like him. And he was like, I just really didn't want to do that.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
After they were done filming and, in some of the behind the scenes stuff, he was just like, after everything was done, he was just like, he was really blown away by how professional Shia is, how talented he is. He said he was like, they were very friendly with each other. And yeah, it was just, I'm curious your thoughts on method acting. Like, I think there's obvious.
No, don't get me started.
Yeah, because I think there's like a healthy method, but I also think like your job. I think we've said it before. Like your job is to act.
Yeah, your job is to act.
You don't have to be.
I think that there's a reason why most of the stories we hear about method acting are about very wealthy white men. And I'm going to leave it at that. Well, I won't leave it at that. Basically,
I feel like I have more.
I have more. I think that it's one thing to, like, if your character has a hobby or an expertise or an interest, it's one thing to pick up that thing and spend time learning about it and practicing it and to engage in some of the daily patterns that your character would do. But I think to me, the sign of a good actor is that they are able to separate themselves from the character and move in and out of one and the other. And I think that ultimately I think it more often becomes an excuse for bad behavior towards the people you work with than an actual path to good work.
Yeah.
And like, I'm kind of like the end justifies the means person on a lot of things. But I don't think that method acting automatically means better acting. And
hard agree.
Yeah. And so I'm just kind of like, I think it's a lot of, or it can be a lot of cruelty to the people you work with for not a lot of artistic payoff.
Right. Yeah.
What do you think about it?
No, I mean, same. I think like, honestly, like chill.
Like, chill.
You're not that cool.
In summation,
it really
chill.
Like, if you really need to. Speaking of Saltburn, Jacob Elordi as Elvis.
Exactly.
Versus, it's like he was like, no, I don't like. He didn't even do that much research, is what he said. I think.
And he was doing it on set
at
Saltburn too.
Yeah, he's like, he was on set for Saltburn during that time. Compared to Austin Butler, it's like.
And I'll tell you which performance I think is better.
I think the world agrees.
Yeah.
So again, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Great.
So I mean, luckily they didn't go too far on this. He just like didn't talk to them. Talk to them after.
That feels very reasonable. I think that's not that's not cruel.
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
Yeah, it was like, yeah, calm. And then they was like, okay, cool, I'm done.
Yeah.
He didn't get stuck in that mode. So
Therein lies the difference. Yeah.
So, again, kind of just talking about Shia LaBeouf, I just have to say, like, him in this, the feralness of how he acts, I think, like, I couldn't imagine this film being what it is without Shia as the lead.
It's true. It's very, very dependent on him.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Absolutely.
Like,
so the first day of filming was actually the parking garage scene with David Morse and Ashley.
oh,
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah, so that was the very first day.
Wow. That's
which is like a heavy
start
dialogue.
With a bang. Yeah.
Yeah, which is such like that's kind of like the turning point of this
Yeah,
film where it's like, oh no, he takes her phone. Oh, it makes me panic. Or he like locks the door on her too.
I hate it.
And that actress said that was her favorite day of filming throughout the whole thing. She thought like working with him was so incredible, and she like learned a lot from him. So it was kind of
that's really sweet.
Even
Again,
within the method, he was
like,
still very like warm.
Yeah,
to everybody.
he was able to still make it a good environment for the people he was working with.
Totally. So the director DJ Caruso. The reason why this film feels so organic is because he gave all the actors the freedom to improvise when necessary to make their dialogue appeal to the teen market.
Love it.
So that's why I think watching it still holds up. Because I'm like, that's how I talk to my friends.
Yeah. Well, and it feels like a time capsule also because of that, because it's true to how teens talked then.
Yeah.
I know one of the lines I wrote down.
Oh my gosh, there's so many good ones.
My iTunes are gone. My iTunes are gone.
I know. I was trying to think too. It was like right after I was done illegally downloading, I finally got iTunes because I finally got a laptop to go to college.
The just post LimeWire era.
Yes, it was like right after, and everyone had you were so dependent on it. And like, where did it go?
Yeah, it was like that was like where your personality lived, was in your iTunes collection. And
and your iPod. So yeah. But they kind of, again, all the references, it doesn't feel dated though, for some reason, but maybe it's because it feels more time capsule.
Yeah, it feels time specific, but it doesn't feel stale. Yeah. To me, at least.
And I think, so DJ Caruso, again, he liked them to improvise. He said, I like to give my actors the freedom. If they fail, they fail. We just go back and do another take.
I love
Which
that.
feels like such a healthy environment, to be honest.
That's what it should be. Especially now that we have digital film, like that we're not running through actual reels. Like, give people a chance.
Yeah, give them a shot. So he liked to push them in that way, and he thought it was like fun to have them do different stuff, because he was like, why would we just sit there and do take after take and do the same lines over and over if we're just gonna get the same result?
Each take should be different, otherwise why are you doing more takes?
So he had like instances too, which a bunch of them made it in the film. A bunch of the improvised scenes made it in. One of the scenes too, which I find the funniest, the actor that plays Ronnie, the friend, when he comes over and he has the macadamia nuts and he walks in, literally the actor was like, so I got on set and we were going to shoot the scene, and then all of a sudden DJ just hands me macadamia nuts, and he's like, well, what am I supposed to do with these? He goes, I don't know. And then he just like walks away, and he's like, cool, okay. And so he walks in the door and he has the macadamia nuts. He's like, and then Shia has that response like, what, you're coming over and all you brought me is macadamia nuts?
I love
And it's just little things like that. Like, what would you say to your friend if they came over?
That interaction rings so true.
Yeah, so he just like, let them have, I think, playtime, which as a director, it's nice to hear a director that does that, because it's just like, it's not that serious.
Yeah. Opposite of Kubrick.
If everyone's doing their job, If everyone's doing their job, like everyone's there to do a job, let them do it. And like, let's have fun doing it.
Give them some trust. Fun. Yeah. Make it fun.
The scene in the beginning too with the Cale and his father was improvised as well.
Interesting.
So, their conversations and stuff was just kind of, which I think like, again, like in such a brief moment in time when we get to see the dad, see that bond, and then feel the effects of that. I think that improv was like led us into their actual relationship on the set.
And it sets up the character very effectively in a short span of time. Like we develop an emotional bond to him very quickly.
Yeah. One of Steven Spielberg's favorite lines of the film is "Operation Stupid is officially over," which was also an improvised line. I just love that he is like, I'm like, who did he tell?
Yeah.
He was like, oh, DJ, guess what? Just text us. He just texts him. This is my favorite line.
Just so you know, in case you were wondering. I love that level of enthusiasm from him.
Yeah, it's cute. It's cute to see.
Yeah.
Again, the difference I think in Rear Window compared to this one too, obviously, is the technology that we have.
Totally.
Now versus that. So the idea of like, how do you trap a teenager in the house, make them look outside?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just the idea of like having that. I think 2007 too, we were all at like the peak of our online obsessions. At least I feel like I was in mine. Because again, we had iTunes.
Yep.
I was clocking like 8 hours on The Sims every day.
Oh yeah, I mean, same.
You know, T9 texting. I just feel like we were so chronically like that was the start of like the end.
Yeah,
beginning of the end.
Well, and it was like much more tied to like an actual physical computer than because now we're just on our phones.
Right.
But at that in 2007, it was very like if you were doing online things, you're in a room with a laptop or a desktop
or your gaming system.
Yeah. But like confined inside.
Yeah.
Which is no longer the case.
Right.
But it's also, I was so interested watching these two back to back, thinking about the difference between Rear Window, where all he has is the camera, but he's not taking photos through it. He's just looking through the viewfinder. Compared to here, Shia has the binoculars, but at a certain point, the binoculars pretty much go away and it becomes just about the little camcorder.
Yeah, there is that switch, which the binoculars are so good with that red cast on
I know.
They're so iconic.
Well, and again, it feels so specific to that time too.
Yeah.
That reflective red surface. That was such a 2000s thing. But yeah, there's just I don't know. I'm not sure what the end of that thought was. But.
Yeah. No, I think it is, again, that like that's one of the main similarities of these two is that we're both from the POV of those characters looking through whatever lens that they had at the time. And it switches from the binoculars to the camera.
It like takes a step. It takes it a step further in that you're moving from just observation to recording to, Shia's actually taking video of what's going on, which feels like it takes the voyeurism a step further to me.
He makes, I noted too, like later he, and one of the beginning scenes when his friend comes over, he's like, come here, you gotta look at like all these neighbors. It's like better than reality TV. And then one of the last few scenes we see, we're as the audience watching it on his TV screen. So it really is just that full circle of like, where
it's reminding us that we're viewers.
Yeah. And I think again, just the nod to the voyeurism aspect, and like at that time, 2007 was like when reality TV really like all the really big shows
taking off. Yeah.
So I think it was like a nice little commentary on like
totally
what would be now the reality TV that we have,
which is also like just kind of a fun thing to think about. I'm sure Hitchcock would have loved reality TV. He would have found it fascinating.
Oh God!
Right? I mean, dude was such a voyeur. He would have been fascinated.
Yeah, he wouldn't have really talked about it, but it was like, or it would be like that Werner Herzog interview where he's like, "Honey boo boo," and he just knows what honey boo boo is.
Good Werner. Damn.
I don't think it was. I need to warm up, but
I want to hear it again.
No. You have to pay extra for that.
That's the Patreon bonus content.
You have to fund my Holes fan fiction film before you get another Werner Herzog impression.
Sold.
$5. So I have some notes on the set design as well. Oh, again, I was saying the production designer. I watched all this behind the scenes stuff with him, and he just was. Another thing I noted, again, watching with more critical eye of this, is how layered, much like Rear Window, how layered the sets are in this. So the production designer kind of said there's nothing more important than character. And so he's like, the actors are character driven, the story is character driven, and the importance of designing the room in particular is like his own character.
Totally. I thought the bedroom especially was just so well designed. It tells us so much about that person.
I know. I'm like, did they just let Shia just live in there
Yeah.
for a few weeks? Because that just looks like a teen. Is that where he was under his own house arrest? They just left him on set.
Okay, little rear window tidbit off of that. Which like we'll get to more about this later, but while we're talking about sets and living on them, the apartment complex for Rear Window was built as a fully functional, like had
Oh.
running water, had all of that. And the woman playing Miss Torso,
Oh my God, she's so funny.
incredible, actually lived in that apartment day in, day out for like 30 days during the shoot.
Why?
I don't know if this was her idea, if it was Hitchcock's idea, but
No one knew about it till after. They're like,
her lease was up and she was like, I see an opportunity.
Yeah. She's like, this is cozy.
Yeah. But like, just since you happened to bring up actors living in their characters' spaces, actually happened during Rear Window.
That's bizarre.
I've never heard anything like that in a film. I have
to learn more about that.
Well, and especially like we never see her sink going. Why would you need to make it?
But again, just
plumbed? It's very Hitchcock.
Shia LaBeouf literally says scenery is a crutch. When you have good scenery to play with and it becomes beyond performance, you can make it real. So maybe that was kind of their thought process. I always think with film, it's like it's those little things that does make it real. And it's like, you won't notice those things off the bat. You know, you might never notice those things, but the culmination of all that,
they send you subconscious signals.
Yeah. So for the actor, and then it translates to us. So it's all this like unspokenness.
I was definitely getting a kick out of the Fallout poster in the background. The little like radiation symbol behind his head in a bunch of the shots. So it was just
got some good. That poster is like burned in my brain.
Yep.
So DJ Caruso, the director, and the production designer, again, to take it a step further and really make it this like lived in set, when we first are introduced to the dad's office scene after everything happens, we see Shia like walk in there, open up, look around, and then like take a big like inhale. It's because the production designer and the director smoked cigars on that specific set, so that like when Shia entered it, it's like he really was living this, you know, smells one of the biggest memory. And you imagine if his dad's just like in his office working all the time smoking cigars, like wouldn't that be something you like hold on to? And again, it's that subtle little touch of like they just like made that for the actor. But again, coming from the production designer and the director, I just thought that was a very interesting detail for them to have.
Wow. Powerful.
Yeah. So they spent a lot of time building like the colors, the textures, the architecture, and the lighting.
Great lighting.
Which I feel like, again, from what I've watched behind the scenes, the production designer was actually the one that was, I think, initially really thoughtful about, obviously cinematographer, but he was thoughtful about where the light sources were coming from, like the lamps and the windows for this film. So I think it was really cool that, you know, he was very conscious of those things because it is so important to the film.
Yeah, I mean, light sources are major plot points in both films, which is you know, a very meta touch.
Yeah. So along with the lighting, he kind of said like there's nothing more important than the windows in this, obviously. And they specifically found or wanted a Pasadena craftsman home that we see, which I feel like, you know, we have that corner shot multiple times over the film because they're warm in the day. It lets kind of all the lights in with those big windows, but then it's very dark at night because it has that like overhanged porch as well. So they kind of said this style home was what they wanted because it resembled a big eye. And they kind of saw this house as like Shia or like the character Kale's eye because the hood porch was kind of like a brow and the window was kind of like the eye. So it was like looking from, I think on so many layers, it was looking from the dark on the inside out to the light.
Totally.
So,
well, and it also kind of connects with like the themes of confinement and that like he can look but not touch. The eye can't interact with anything as it can only see out. It's so I love it.
But I love that they specifically were like Pasadena craftsmen. That's what we need. Which they are such. If you've been to Pasadena, these are like these homes have so much character in them, and they really do just look like they're, you know,
interesting.
Yeah.
Ooh, I love it. What a great fact. Good find.
So there was obviously like a lot of stunts. I tried to find some more about this. The stunt coordinator was Manny Perry. I didn't realize like how many stunts really are in this film.
Packed with them, yeah.
But I realized they're like jumping on roofs, they're jumping off of roofs in the pool.
Yeah.
They're running, like he like booked it down that street chasing the kids after he got dog shit on his feet. You know, all the bat scenes. So yeah, so I think the what's her name? The main actress, she was like, she didn't realize there was going to be this much stunts involved. So she was like, you know, you get on set, you come there, and like all of a sudden a bat's just swinging towards your face. You have to be like, okay, like,
great.
Don't hit me.
I feel like they should have let her know a little bit more about that beforehand, but you know.
Right.
Okay.
So critics' response to this film was actually pretty positive. I think it has like 70% on Rotten Tomatoes. So. It earned 2 thumbs up rating from Richard Roper and A.O. Scott, who were actually filling in for Roger Ebert on this article, and they said this is a cool little thriller with big scares and fine performances.
Fine.
Just fine performances. And then William Thomas of Empire gave it a 3 out of 5 stars and wrote, like, despite the edgy title, like, Disturbia is content to be multiplex-friendly teen thriller with a higher degree of slickness and smarts than most of its contemporaries. So again, it kind of, people were like, yeah, no, it's like, it's, you know, again, it's this teen film, but it's, you know, it's a good story.
Yeah. Well,
and
again, I think it's also, those reviews do a good job at something that I think a lot about in film reviewing, which is like, you have to meet a film where it is. You're not asking Disturbia to be Rear Window. It's not trying to be Rear Window.
Clearly from the director and the screenplay too, they're like, no, like this is our
something
own thing
different.
From our own experience.
It's a teen thriller. And I think as a teen thriller, it totally succeeds at its own goals. Yeah. And that's what matters.
Yeah. And it's good.
It's
and
good.
I still like it.
Yes.
So the thing I'm coming back to of it being like Rear Window and like that. There was a lawsuit involved with this. You know, yeah. So it's very like
walk us through it, because I saw
dry, to be fair.
There was like a little reference in Rear Windows info that I was looking up, and I was like, I'm gonna skip past that so I don't read.
Go past.
Yeah. So give me the lowdown.
So the Sheldon Abend Revocable Trust. Let me take a breath.
Really making us work this week. God damn.
Can we have an acronym, please? Filed a lawsuit against Steven Spielberg and DreamWorks parent company Viacom and Universal Studios on September 5th, 2008. The suit alleged that Disturbia infringed on the rights of Cornwell Woolrich's 1942 short story, It Had to Be Murder, which was obviously the basis for Rear Window. And DreamWorks never bothered. DreamWorks.
Basically accurate. DreamWorks, Spielberg.
Dreamberg. Oh my God, he should change that. Steven?
Okay, let us put you on this. You buy DreamWorks, change the name to Dreamberg. Yeah. Nothing else changes.
First film out, my fan fiction of Holes.
Perfect. You star.
We'll get Shia LaBeouf again.
Yeah.
So
are you in or you out, man?
Are you in, you out? Let us know. So DreamWorks never bothered to obtain the motion picture rights to the intellectual property, and they evaded compensating the rights holder. And so like the claim was rejected anyways by the court because they were like, there's so many differences.
That's fair.
So many thematic differences.
It's very different from the like, short story.
Yeah. So it's quoted, their similarities derive entirely from unprotectable elements, and that total look and feel of the works is so distinct that no reasonable trier or fact, man, lawyers, can you just say this in a normal way? I don't even know why I put this quote down here. So, could find the works to be similar within the meaning of copyright law. So they were like, this is so, like, it's so such different. A reach. Yeah. I'm like, what is that trust trying to get at? Are they just holding that with their little gremlin hands? Like, if anybody has anybody in a house and wants to make a thing where they think they see a murder, we will sue. It's like, okay, chill.
Was this your Tony voice coming back out?
I think it might be. He's still in there. He came out from my tummy today.
Tony's still here, Mrs. Torrance.
So yeah, so there was this little lawsuit, but basically they were like, okay, cool, bet. Yeah. And then they went to court and they're like, ha.
Having read it, Do you feel like there's any base for
I
that?
forgot to read it.
Great. Well, I didn't.
So having read it.
Having read it, Siena, do you think that there's any base for this?
See, like I don't even have to ask.
I mean, I think there's very little that's the same. The location is different. The reason that he's confined is different. What he's seeing on the other side is different. How he solves it is different. Like, really, the only similarities are that there's a man stuck inside who thinks he sees a murder. And I agree. I don't think that's really enough to say this is just this one person's idea.
No. And also, the screenwriter of this, or one of the screenwriters of this too, he wrote it from like his personal trauma response as well. I think he had like a incident, like I want to say his father passed away too, so he very much wrote it from his perspective and like his lens. So again, if you're like those are the two things you're going with, that it's similar. It's like then everything's similar to everything else.
Exactly.
Anyway, so they boo on them.
Yeah.
They lose.
Yeah. Fantastic. Justice was served.
Justice was served or unserved. I have some just watching notes.
Love.
I just really wanted to talk about the opening scene. Just my
scene.
Just so you know, the opening scene. So not the father and something, but the car scene. Since this film, I have not been able to drive on the road the same. I am in constant fear that one day a car is going to swerve out from in front of me and there will just be a stopped car that I will hit.
And like, there's nothing you can do.
There is not, and that's what I think it was. It was such.
It's so like nobody's fault. There's nothing.
No.
Yeah. It's
and just the it's
and
brutal.
then the
So
other car.
So then you think you're done.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay,
great. Yeah. Nope.
Thinking maybe he'll just break his leg and like that's why he's stuck in the house.
Right.
No, they get hit and his dad dies.
Well, and I was super interested that they chose to not even have him have any visible injuries, because it cuts straight from the crash happening to this close up on his foot, I believe. And as it like goes up his leg, you think that it's going to be revealing the cast as in Rear Window, and his leg is completely healed, which is
he's just like good.
Odd.
But it's because yes or no? The teacher, you would have absolutely decked the teacher.
Oh, terrible! Yeah,
how
he's
dare
a dick.
He should be in jail.
Yeah. Although I will say, as somebody who grew up with parents who were bilingual, there are few things that get under my skin the same way as bad high school Spanish. It makes me want to murder.
Okay, cool. You know what makes me want to murder? Dick teachers.
Okay,
I love
fair.
how like the span. That's what you got.
I know that's terrible.
It's not terrible. You're not wrong, but I love how you're like, Al. The teacher was like awful,
but let me just say,
they're high schoolers.
Work on your pronunciation.
Oh my god, you should have heard me in French class then.
I'm not saying my own is good, but I am saying I hate hearing other people do it badly.
Did you take a high school Spanish class?
Well, because my parents speak Spanish, so
I'm good.
Yeah.
Did you take any foreign language?
I took. We'll get to that later. It's fine.
All right. So I'm alone here on that. Is
great. And same. We're both in our own little islands of hatred.
I realized too. I never asked you. Like, what? Was this your first time?
It was my first time. Yeah. Yeah.
And tell me what you thought.
Sal.
So many
I had
firsts.
so much fun. It's very it definitely feels like it's in the Hitchcock suspense school in that it's like that entire last half hour.
Yeah.
I paused it, I think, twice actually during it, because I was like, I need to get up and pace a little bit.
Really?
Because this is just getting under my skin.
It does a really good job of pacing out the suspense in the same way Rear Window does. I think, it kind of held us out, but it kept you very intrigued throughout all the moments of it. And then you have those like little jump scares.
Yeah.
My favorite jump scare, the friend in the house. Did that get you?
Oh my God, that was
awful. Did you really think?
Yeah.
They did
I
that?
absolutely did.
Still, sometimes I like, if I go a while without watching it, it like almost gets me every time.
If that was my friend, I would have decked him.
Speaking of murder.
Yeah.
Speaking
of things that make me want to murder.
Children, or Spanish language class.
Yeah. Yep. Oh my God.
Oh,
no, that just really.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, they do a good job of kind of pacing out. And then really at the end there is when it like all of a sudden you're like, okay, cool, full thriller action.
Yeah, but it's a very slow burn getting there, which I love. I always appreciate that. So I really enjoyed it.
Yay.
Yeah, I'm glad you suggested it. Yeah. Shall we dive into Rear Window?
Absolutely.
I want to hear your viewing experience. I know you said this was something that you'd seen in film school, right?
Yeah. So the first time, I forget what class I watched it in.
It's very like, I'd watched it beforehand, but I also watched it in film school. I was telling you, it's one that like, you like can't go to film school without writing a paper on Rear Window. Like it's the film that launched 1,000 films.
Yeah, I can like see the room because again, at Columbia we had actual like little theaters.
I keep forgetting we both went to different Columbias. That's so funny.
I went to
Al went to Columbia College in Chicago. I went to Columbia University in New York.
Yeah, different Columbias.
Yeah.
It's so funny that we went to the opposite ones because my entire life when people are like, oh, where are you going to school? Where'd you go to school?
Everybody always thinks it's the opposite.
And I have to go, Columbia College Chicago, not the one you're thinking of. And not the fancy one, not the smarty one.
But because I went to an art school, I have to go Columbia University, not the arts one you're thinking of.
Really? I just feel it's so funny we spent like most of our lives just saying like not the other one. Yeah, but we had a killer film department. I don't know what it's like now, but man, ours, I loved it. So yeah, I can envision like it was in one of the classes.
You can smell the popcorn.
Yeah, I can like, it was one of the classes where it was a bunch of random films. But anyway, so I want to say I don't know if I've watched it since then. Wow. So this might have been my second overall rewatch of it.
So college was your first watch too?
Yeah.
My mom is a huge Hitchcock fan. And so she showed this to me when I was... Yeah. I mean, again, you've heard some of the things my mom was showing me earlier than this that are much gorier.
Yeah.
She showed
me
this.
Feels like cinema.
Yeah. You know? Yeah.
I don't know what this hand was, but the claw. It's cinema.
She probably showed me this for the first time when I was maybe 10 or so, somewhere in there. So pretty early, and I loved it. It's never been one that scares me all that much.
No, but it's a fun one.
It's comforting in a weird way. It's another one where I like the world that it takes place in.
Yeah.
This very confined world. Yeah.
But it's so expansive too. So
well, and I think that's such a Hitchcock thing because he's so hyper specific about things. And so like one of my notes that I had, because it's been a while since I've revisited any of his work, is that it feels so much like he's the puppeteer, and he's kind of very specifically, you do not see anything he does not want you to see. You do not see anything until the moment he wants you to see it. Whereas, there are a lot of filmmakers, like compared to Saltburn, where it's like everything is there from the beginning. You just won't.
Yes.
You don't have the clues to notice it yet.
Yeah.
He's very much more like everything is hyper controlled. You will not know a thing until I want you to know.
Right.
Which there's something very satisfying about that. And I think that adds to the sense that it's this very like rich world to dive into, which, as you know, when I rewatched this, I had to pause, screenshot, and send you a photo of the screen.
Sienna's been showing this picture to everybody.
Nobody's as interested in this as I am, and I'm very frustrated. You're interested. Nobody else has been interested, and I'm very disappointed. I noticed on this rewatch that in the dining room section of Jimmy Stewart's apartment, there's a giant oil painting on the wall of what at first looks like just like a regular still life of a table with like a vase of dead flowers on it. And then you look closer and you realize each of the chairs around the table has a cute little fluffy kitten sitting in it with like a ribbon around its neck. So it's like,
you know what I just realized? You think Lisa, that was like her little like I'm gonna drop off, like, you think this is cute, and he's like, man.
I
and then
love
she's like, no, but this is adorable. And she's like, I'm putting it here.
I could totally see that.
That would make
feels like a
sense.
Lisa choice
Yeah.
because it's just so
Lisa.
incongruous in his apartment.
Yeah.
And there's like, I don't know if you saw it, but there's like a moment where his friend, the policeman, comes to his house and is talking to him about it. And as he's having the conversation with Jimmy Stewart, he just starts looking at this painting and he just kind of side eyes it for a second and then just is like,
I forgot to look out for
so
that.
funny.
Yeah.
And again, I've seen this film many times and had never noticed that
So
before.
funny. I think that was a Lisa touch.
I think that's gotta
be a Lisa touch.
Yeah, she's putting a little feminine charm into the apartment.
She probably would look around and be like, there's no life in here.
You know what this is missing? A giant portrait of fluffy kittens.
She probably came back
and
she was so right. Again, talking about like the layered aspects of it. I think like
exactly.
Maybe that was one of those things that
This is
or I don't know. Hitchcock loves kittens. That tracks.
He was a weird dude. I could see him putting something like that in there as a joke, but like, it's one of those kinds of things. I love looking at the details in the background of characters' homes because
it's so interesting.
Again,
just like anyone's. Speaking of being like voyeurs,
exactly.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
I mean, we're like if someone has their lights on and you're walking past their home, I am like, oops, I dropped something. Oh my god, what? Let me look over
even
there.
like driving at night, if you see like somebody's house lit up, like,
I'm looking at everything.
Of course you are. I want to see if your Christmas tree's still up.
I am a neighbor with. I'm peeking through the blinds if I hear commotion. I'm looking out my peephole. I have to have a patio that faces like things.
Oh my god!
So I can watch. So we're like,
a front row seat.
Yeah, I have to.
Absolutely, I totally get it.
So looking like in the backgrounds. Of, it's always fun to find those little things. Yeah, you're like, who is this person?
Who? Yeah, that's where you find the details that people don't realize they're revealing about themselves. So this film is directed by Alfred Hitchcock. It's from 1954. Stars. I do this every time.
We get so excited we just want to dive in the middle.
Every time I'm like, this time I'm going to be so organized and I'm going to start with the list of cast and crew and then I'm going to move into my nice little summary, and every time it's like half an hour in and I'm like, I never told you who this movie was made by or what it's about.
It's okay, we're getting there.
Great. Stars Jimmy Stewart, Grace Kelly, the future Princess of Monaco, Wendell Corey, Thelma Ritter, who love as
Thelma's
Stella.
Oh my god, she's so great.
Icon.
Yeah.
Fucking icon.
So funny.
My favorite character in the movie, hands down.
Absolutely.
By far the most likable person.
I love the female neighbor across the way that just like, that's how, I mean, that's
with
obviously
the dog
how I
in
make
the basket,
the one who just in her little like cute 50s like outfit or whatever.
Mrs. Lonely Hearts?
The pretty blonde, the one that looks like Barbie. Who, like,
Miss Torso. Miss Torso. Yes.
Miss Torso?
Miss Torso. That's his nickname for her. The one that he's like creeping on?
Yeah.
Yeah. Miss Torso.
She's so cute.
I love Miss Torso.
On the nickname though. Why did I not pick that up? My brain was like, you're good.
Your brain was like, you're not ready for
like,
this.
oh, that? Nope.
No.
Beep.
Reject.
Reject. Send back. Miss Torso. I'm going to name her Betty.
Uh-huh. And then Raymond Burr, who's the villain.
Yeah.
Which I found this out this time doing research. Apparently, Hitchcock cast Raymond Burr and created the makeup look.
Yeah.
Because he wanted him to look as much as possible like the producer David O. Selznick.
I was going to say, I was trying to make him look like him.
I mean, a little bit.
Yeah.
But okay, I'm going to show you a picture of David O. Selznick.
Gosh.
Oh wait, I turned my phone off for recording, but I'll show you a picture afterwards. We can like put it on the internet.
So he wanted him to look like a producer?
He wanted him to look like a producer that he had worked with on previous films that he went on to hate because he felt like he took too much control of his
Again
work.
With these petty men.
Mm-hmm.
And they say we can't control our emotions.
I know.
Get it together, boys.
I know. Okay, I need to show you a picture because it's just too accurate.
I wonder if that guy ever saw it. And was
I'm sure he did.
Oh my god, he does.
I know. It's like identical. It's incredible.
Oh,
so it's like it's one of those where sometimes you'll hear stories like that and you're like, I don't believe that's why. In this case, having seen it side by side, it is uncanny. So a nice little bit of pettiness from Hitchcock there.
Love some petty.
Mm-hmm.
Love Tom Petty. I don't know. I'll be over here.
It's been such a hard year, you guys. We're
guys,
still
we're
recording
doing
this
it.
from 2023.
By the time you listen to this, we've made it to 2024.
Have we?
They have. We might not make it.
We're
we got
always
a few more
in
days.
2023. Oh my God. Anyway, so summary. Photographer L.B. Jeffries, which is Jimmy Stewart, is nursing a broken... Jimmy Stewart.
Oh,
Yep.
do the rest of it in that voice.
I could do a Jimmy Stewart voice far too well because I grew up watching Jimmy Stewart. It's all about the way you hold your lower lip, you see. Okay, I'm gonna stop now. I could do this for hours. Photographer L.B. Jeffries is nursing. I need to stop. He's nursing a broken leg in the middle of a hot, sticky New York City summer. He's bored and he's pent up with all his voyeuristic energy.
Yes.
And he takes to watching his apartment complex neighbors through the window with a pair of binoculars. Or I guess mostly through the camera.
He kind of switches too,
He
though.
does.
He also do they both start with binoculars and then switch to the camera?
Yes, they do.
Dun dun dun. Look at us finding information out you probably already know.
Great. We're really on top of it. And I said it's all very kind of reality TV before reality TV.
Absolutely.
Until Jeffries becomes convinced that one of his neighbors just murdered his wife and is going to get away with the crime unless a certain wheelchair-bound someone intervenes.
Yeah, intervenes. Here he comes to save the day.
Here's Johnny. Yeah. Here's Jimmy. Here's Jimmy. So let's talk a little bit about the source material. You mentioned that it's based on this Woolrich short story called It Had to Be Murder, had this copyright dispute. The story, it's fascinating what was changed also for the adaptation to Rear Window, because kind of the biggest difference between both films and the source material is that in the source material, there's no love interest. There's no women.
Really?
Instead
I
of...
love that they both put that in, though. Good job.
Instead of a Lisa figure, it's the main character's black servant. So there's a lot of very iffy mid-century dialect going on from what I'm presuming is a white writer. Very glad that they did not do that in either version.
Yeah.
But it interests me that both adaptations were like, what's at the core of this will be better served by bringing out this angle of like romantic and sexual obsession, because that's to me a lot of what comes out in the addition of these female characters. It's like it emphasizes the romantic / sexual aspect of the voyeurism in a way that is really not present in the original. It's very much just kind of this like hard-boiled detective type of feeling. With his like trusty sidekick. Which I think that both of the films are stronger than the source material, to be blunt.
I'll read it. I felt so... It was literally up on my... I wanted to talk about it so bad.
It was a really interesting read. I'm glad I did. Can't say that it's... It's not great. It's intriguing in this context. But he's also not a photographer in the original, which that's a meta touch that gets added for the film, which I think is very Hitchcock. Very brilliant.
I wonder if that's why maybe both of them nod to the binoculars aspect of it. Did he use binoculars in the source material?
I think he does use binoculars. But I did pull a couple quotes from it that I thought were interesting in the context of the films. It's the story that's very interested in this idea of modern life confining and imprisoning us. And so it kind of, in both the source material and the film, makes the apartment building start to feel like a panopticon, which, do you know about panopticons? Ooh, this is this theoretical prison design come up with, I believe, by Michel Foucault, who's a philosopher, which is this idea of a prison where essentially no prison guards are needed because it's like a round prison. Prisoners are on the sides. There's a tower in the center through which somebody could be watching at any time, but you don't know when you're being watched. And so you could be surveilled, but because of that, there's no need for actual surveillance because of the implication of it.
Yeah.
And so, which like, that becomes like this metaphor for society as a whole and the way
Totally.
we all feel like we're like.
Well, it's like the shopping cart theory.
Exactly.
I think too. Like if someone was watching, like, are you the person to put it back? Like I feel like it kind of. I don't know if that really goes, but
no,
it feels.
I think it is. It's the same type of thing.
Yeah. If
of
no
like,
one's watching, do you still do good?
Exactly.
Kind of
and the panopticon is this idea of like somebody is always potentially watching, which is very.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah. Yeah. And so I pulled this quote that I loved from the source material. The chain of little habits that were their lives unreeled themselves. They were all bound in them tighter than the tightest straitjacket any jailer ever devised, though they all thought themselves free. Right?
Oh, that's good.
I thought that kind of gives some interesting context to the film in that I think that's an undertone to both of them.
Yeah.
That sense of how much daily life begins to unravel as soon as there's a disruption in it, like a leg break or being stuck inside.
Yeah.
As all of a sudden you're able to kind of, in the same way that when you say a word over and over again, it stops sounding like a real word. When you start watching your own routine, it starts seeming bizarre and odd.
Yeah.
But I thought that was just, it's not something that's at the forefront of my mind necessarily when I'm watching. And so seeing that so prominent in the text, I was like, I need to share this.
That's a good quote, yeah.
Another one that I loved as the protagonist is thinking about this sense of responsibility he feels for convincing other people that this murder really happened. He says, I, from my window, had to show them a body, which I was like, oh, he has the same dilemma that a horror director does. You have to show the body.
Oh.
I thought there was like an interesting.
Yeah.
It's like
again his POV, like we are put in that.
Yeah,
place
it's like another meta wrinkle.
Yeah. Ooh, that's
right?
true. Yeah, because it's like how do you prove without. Yeah.
Exactly. And I have just one more text quote from you.
From me?
Or for you. For you.
Me.
No.
I've been around forever. I had to. I'm so sorry.
You had to.
I said Dreamberg, so
Dreambergs,
you know.
Yeah. And I tortured you for that. So I've heard this. So as he's thinking about, as Jeffries, the character, is watching the murderer across the street, he thinks he must have been tense doing it. I was twice as tense watching him do it.
Ooh.
Which, like, that's kind of the concept of the whole.
Yeah.
That kind of encapsulates all of it, right?
Yeah, especially when you can't do anything and you are just like trapped in this space. It's like, what do you do?
Right.
And you're just like gripping on. It's like the panic of helplessness.
Yeah, and it's like I wrote down, it's the helplessness of the voyeur, the ways that it's disempowering as well as empowering, but also that's the situation we're in. We're twice as tense watching them do it as they are doing it.
Yeah. Like, I mean, not to like jump towards the end, but even just when at the very end when she goes to like the balcony and stuff, I'm just like,
that's the part that actually still gets my heart.
Yeah,
racing,
it's
is
good.
when Grace Kelly is across the street.
Yeah, what a baddie.
What a baddie.
In that dress and everything.
So this film had a weird release. The United Nations hosted this benefit world premiere for the film.
This is already starting off, weird.
Yeah, this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
So all the proceeds for the film's premiere went to benefit the American Korean Foundation, which I was like, what does this have to do with the film? Like, great, but I don't see the connection there besides that.
I don't know if I want to.
Yeah, good point.
I'm okay.
Earned $37 million on a $1 million budget, which I was like,
worldwide.
whoa.
That was like the
wow. Which I was like, I need to find out what that is in modern money because that's insane.
Did you do the?
I did do the math. So it's the equivalent of a film with an $11 million budget,
which is small,
not huge.
Yeah.
That's like kind of indie.
Yeah,
it's like the upper tier of indie, but
nowadays.
that's indie.
Okay, so 11 mil to
11 mil to 414 mil.
Holy crap!
So this is like box office blown out of the water.
Wow.
Insanely
Do you even
successful.
What any other what film has done that?
It's really like that jump is phenomenally
cool. Wow.
impressive. So I wrote down, I think this may be the biggest box office success we've discussed so far.
Yeah. 1 mil
to 400 or 11 mil to 414 in today's money.
Yeah.
enormous.
That's crazy.
Um,
You got to think though, like it was all like on a set, like, which is it's so cool, but it's so like looks like you're watching like a theater
Oh,
play.
totally.
You know what I mean?
Well,
Like it's very like two-dimensional, but
oh
also like
yeah, because
so cool
I
and
mean,
layered.
it's takes place in Greenwich Village, but it's entirely shot on a soundstage.
Oh yeah.
And entirely.
You don't say.
Yeah. Well, and like also, I hadn't really thought about this, which is kind of weird, but I mean, obviously, you can tell that it's a set.
Yeah.
I hadn't really thought about the fact that it's all inside, and so they could completely control when it was daytime versus nighttime, and just with like a flick of a light switch.
There's a couple little switches. Yeah.
So, which was, I think, what a lot of the budget went to was creating this extremely complicated lighting plan. But also because this was, I think, the largest set that had been built at the studios at that time. At this particular, I think it was Paramount. I think it was the largest that had been built at their, largest built at Paramount Studios at that point. Had these extremely complex lighting controls, and it had to have an enormous drainage system at the bottom so that at the rain scenes, it wouldn't flood the whole set. So incredibly complicated, and also the lights to create that daylight were so intense that they triggered the sprinkler system.
Got so hot?
Yeah, it got so hot that they triggered the sprinkler system. And
they had just the lights right next to the sprinkler, and they're like, "This is a good idea."
Want to take a guess at what Hitchcock did?
No, but you're gonna tell me anyway.
Oh, I'm gonna tell you. He just sat back in his director chair, was like, "Would somebody bring me an umbrella?" Had somebody bring him an umbrella, open it up, and just sat there calmly in the dark until somebody fixed it. Just like
that's
cheery as hell. Isn't that incredible?
So
I love the mental
I don't know if we
image
can
of
say
him
this,
just-
but that is cunty.
Hitchcock. More like Hitchcunt.
Yeah, Hitchcock. Oh my god, I need, you know how everyone has like the side profile of just like him? I need the director's chair umbrella side profile.
Yes, I love that.
That's
Hitchcunt.
so iconic. Oh my god, I kind of love that for him.
He's that bitch.
Good for him.
Yes, good for him. Much like Saltburn.
Oh my gosh.
So
he's like, I'm too famous for this.
But it's a very telling story about who he was as a person.
Yeah.
That he just was like, I'm just gonna chill.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Just chill in my artificial rain.
Right. Question about the set. I'm just realizing, is that apartment that you were talking about that was fully functional on that set too?
Yes. Yeah.
And we never see his building, do we?
Do you see his?
I feel like we see so much of
we don't see
outward.
the outside of his building.
We don't do like a full
no, we
view
don't.
of his. Oh man, I don't know what it looks like.
Which also, this is another interesting production fact. Hitchcock never went to any of the other apartments. He stayed entirely in Jimmy Stewart's apartment for the whole of shoot.
I think that's kind of
sense.
Again, that's a little methody, but he's like putting his
putting
brain
himself in the character's space.
Yeah,
and so
that's
he
kind of
would,
interesting.
Yeah, and so he would radio his directions with an earpiece out to people like Miss Torso and the people across the street.
Yeah.
So he could never actually like look at them as he was directing them. He was
Again, that kind of adds that element of, or like that arm's distance of like
the voyeurism. Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of cool though.
Right?
That's kind of cool.
It's what
I would have to go over there because I would want to see all the little things all the time.
Oh
but
my god, I'd want a tour of Miss Torso's apartment.
Oh my god, I know her little place.
I know.
Very cool.
So thought that was interesting. Obviously, since that bizarre but very successful release, it's been added to basically like every prestigious film list out there. It's in the Library of Congress's list of films with cultural, historical, or aesthetic significance. It consistently ranks in the top 50 of AFI's top 100 list. It got 4 Oscar nominations: director, screenplay, sound recording, and color cinematography.
Oh wow.
Interesting that this is at the time when color and black and white were separate categories. Yeah, they were for a very long time.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I don't know why. This is so colorful. My God.
I know. Yeah. Well, and
Jeez.
talk about that green. Hitchcock loves his green. Loves his green windows in particular, which you see later in Vertigo. But it actually didn't get a Best Picture nomination, which I thought was interesting, and none for performances either. Which I think Grace Kelly in particular She is just luminous in this film.
Yeah, because she's got the RuPaul Drag Race season 1 filter on her face.
Yes, exactly. Well
she
said.
didn't need it, but she had it.
She had it, all right. Which I have some interesting Grace Kelly gossip that we'll get to in a second. Anyway.
Oh, gossip.
And unlike kind of the vast majority of the films we've talked about, critics were immediately very positive on this, rather than kind of taking years to reassess it after an initial negative release, as is often the case with horror. See The Shining.
Right. Where did this fall in Hitchcock's career?
This was 54, right? I think his first silent movie, I want to say, is from 1923. It's called The Lodger, and it's a Jack the Ripper story.
Ooh.
And Psycho is 1960. So this is 6 years pre-Psycho.
Okay.
I think Vertigo is 4 years after this.
Oh, okay. So this was kind of was this one of his like
I think he moved to working in America in the 40s. So this is still, he's only been in America about a decade at this point. So he's kind of like, I think this is one of the ones that really helped
the start of it
cement the intensity of the fervor for him.
Yeah.
Obviously he was successful before this point, but let's see. What do I have for you here? So I did see there is, though, some initial dismissiveness towards kind of the thrill-seeking orientation of the film. I found this
the whole point.
Yeah,
the whole
also like the whole point of Hitchcock, but I found this really funny.
What dummy said this?
Bosley Crowther, who has my favorite film reviewer name, said, "Mr. Hitchcock's film is not significant. What it has to say about people and human nature is superficial and glib, but it does expose many facets of the loneliness of city life, and it tacitly demonstrates the impulse of morbid curiosity. The purpose of it is sensation, and that it generally provides in the colorfulness of its detail and the flood of menace towards the end." So there's
Bosley, what character did Hitchcock make him in a future film? What villain is he?
What villain is he? Who did he murder?
Yeah, who did he murder?
It's so, I mean, it just takes me back to the conversation from last episode about body genres and the way that films that are meant to elicit physical sensations are looked down upon. Yeah. Which is just like, why?
Yeah, that guy just needed some coffee and a timeout, and he would have been good.
I mean, it's like, again, what do you think the point is?
You know what's funny about people who critique stuff like that? They always hit it right on the nose, and you're like, that's the criticism, because that's exactly what I was going for. So it's like, thanks.
Yeah. Like, yes, it's sensational.
I'm like, what do you think you're doing with reviews like that? I don't know. Let them look stupid. Because he got it.
Hilarious.
You just didn't like it. Just say you don't like it.
Yeah.
Maybe don't write a review on it.
Maybe don't make yourself the guy on the record saying that the film Rear Window is not significant.
Yeah.
The film that the Library of Congress called culturally significant.
Even if you haven't seen it, it's like reference in like
The Simpsons.
Simpsons.
Yeah.
I was like probably Family Guy, probably South Park. I don't know. Everything.
So
funny. Well, what's he doing nowadays?
Dead. So there. There you go, Bosley.
With your cool name. Weird. Yeah, there's always going to be those ones.
And of course, now it has an almost impossible perfect 100 out of 100 score on Metacritic, which
whoa,
like literally nothing has that.
I love when you see those because they're like every once in a blue moon you see one.
It's so rare.
Good for him.
So we've got to talk about the film theory of it all.
Yes. Don't ask me a question about it. Don't ask me to answer this.
Lecture, bitches. I came prepared.
I'm set.
So obviously this film is one of the most important films to like the creation of film theory as a discipline. Can you all tell how enthusiastic I am about this? Was particularly important to the Laura Mulvey essay, which I'm sure you also read, Visual Pleasure in Narrative Cinema.
Totally read that. Definitely 100%. 100 out of 100 read that. But I'll hold back my thoughts.
Great.
You tell me.
Great. Even if you haven't read it, you know what it's famous for, which is this is where the term the male gaze is coined.
Oh, what? What?
Was coined in this essay that's based on Rear Window.
Whoa.
And uses Rear Window as its primary example. So
whoa.
we're going to dive into this.
Sweet.
Yeah. It uses Miss Torso in particular as kind of its primary example of the male gaze.
We're calling her Betty.
Betty.
We're giving her a name.
That. Betty, heretofore known as Betty.
Betty Torso.
So this is something that I'm a huge film theory nerd. Part of the reason I went to Columbia was because I wanted a program that was like more theory and history based than like practicals.
Okay.
So I like went hard into this shit for a long time, but this is kind of like maybe the foundational essay of it, or at least one of three. And one of the things that I've always really struggled with about it, because this is like the only one of those foundational essays that was written by a woman and is like about femme perspectives on cinema. On the one hand, it's become this really ubiquitous tool for picking apart gender disparities in film, and particularly, again, that idea of the way that women are objectified in film. But on the other hand, as both a queer femme and a horror lover, I just feel like there's a lot of ways that this chapter of film theory, which this essay by Laura Mulvey comes out in the mid-70s, I think.
Okay. I was wondering what time it came out. Okay.
Yeah, it's about 20 years after the film.
Okay. Ooh, the 70s too. What a
big time for a particular kind of feminism.
Yeah.
So it's very much part of that like second wave Gloria Steinem type feminist push.
Yeah.
But it also, I think this chapter of film theory ends up leaning real hard into this false dichotomy where men are the only ones interested in voyeurism and women become just these helpless objects of the gaze, which, like, first of all, I am a female presenting person who often loves the male gaze. I love it.
I mean, yeah,
like,
it benefits us.
Yes. Like, I love the shots of Miss Torso.
Yeah.
She's hot.
Yes.
And like, both as somebody who like wants to be her and as somebody who wants to be with her. Like, it's more complicated than that.
Right.
And I also think I don't see the ways in which it objectifies her, not just because I think she's hot, even though obviously I do think she's hot, but because we live in a world where these power dynamics exist in the real world and are inescapable. I think playing with them on film is cathartic and satisfying, and also just a way of working through some of the shit that's going on in the real world. We live in a world that is full of the male gaze.
Totally.
And so to me, the idea that like the way to, because this is kind of a lot of the bent of the essay, is that we need to move away from this kind of film and we need to critique and take down the male gaze. And it's like, critique it, sure.
Yes, but taking it down, well, it's like taking away history. Like, how does that benefit us? We should learn from mistakes. We should have those conversations. Like, it's interesting to dissect because I think you can only be better from that. So to take it away is washing it away and acting like it didn't exist. But that, like, how does that, because it still exists. Right. It's still a thing that exists, so.
And on a whole other level, I also I'm going to try not to get too on my soapbox here. I'm going to get too on my soapbox here.
You just put one foot on the soapbox.
Great. Here we go. I think that the way that a lot of this kind of film theory is based in an inherent assumption that voyeurism is bad is very funny and wrong. Like,
and wrong?
And wrong. Like,
how so?
I don't, like, voyeurism I don't think that there's like an inherent moral value to that.
I just think
like,
it's we're just, as humans, we
are voyeuristic creatures.
Yeah.
We all are.
Well, even just from like the most primitive sense, like going back to like hunting, like you have to sit and watch, you have to observe. That's how you learn. Like you learn by observation.
Yeah, biologically, we're trained for that.
Yeah.
And that's like the entire basis of film as a medium to me. Like film, I don't think that there's any film that isn't voyeuristic.
Totally.
On some level.
Well, it's all just human nature and how human interact
and so to me, it often feels like the films that get criticized as being voyeuristic and being from this like very male gazy perspective, I kind of just think like almost all films are, and these are just the ones that are talking about it and addressing it more openly.
Well,
and I want more of that.
I was gonna say, not to go back to Saltburn.
I was just gonna say.
Like everyone was a lot of those, you know, the scenes, right? There's like, I would say
those
the three. Stop it.
Great.
Those three, I feel like people were so shocked by that, but I'm like, that's just because you have not been confronted with those things. It doesn't mean they don't exist.
Exactly.
And that they don't exist all the time around us. It's just you're viewing that, like you were peeking in that window and experiencing that thing you didn't know.
Exactly.
So,
Well, there's something that I also find like weirdly deeply anti-feminist about it, in that it assumes that voyeurism is like an inherently male thing, and that women aren't like interested in voyeurism.
But then look at these two, which is interesting, the two female characters now in these films that weren't in the original, like having
they love
this
to watch.
I was gonna say, I do hate the one line Disturbia when she's like, "Do you guys have donuts?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "What?"
Terrible line.
She's
That's
like,
fine.
"You can't have a stakeout without coffee and donuts." And I was like, okay, like you should
Calm down,
you should let
Ashley.
her do that line, because that was definitely written. But it was, and same with Grace Kelly's character, Lisa. You know, like at the end of it, she was like,
she's into it.
I mean, she was the one that like,
she's the one that goes
everything.
over there. Yeah.
So she was like, again, these like,
she loves it,
which I do
the
love.
girl
So
loves
they,
it.
I feel like both of these films acknowledge the fact that women are also
right. And so
hi, we're human. We are probably the bigger creeps.
Yeah. And so to me, I look at Laura Mulvey being like, oh no, the male gaze and just all of this voyeurism, and I'm like, bitch, you're the one watching movies.
Right.
Like, we're all enjoying it.
Yeah.
Just embrace
she
it.
She likes it the most, and that's why she was trying to. I feel like people are two on one side.
Exactly.
And
and
that's
so
really interesting.
It creates this weird. It creates this weird thing in like the wave of responses to this, of like films that are trying to be against the male gaze and to create the female gaze.
Right.
It creates this side effect of that, in which films that are trying to define the female gaze start to feel, to me, I know it doesn't feel this way to everybody, but it starts feeling like they're made more out of opposition to the male gaze instead of out of their own gaze.
Like the authentic gaze. Yeah. Agreed.
And I'm just like bored by it.
Yeah.
I'm just bored by it.
Yeah. Just tell the story in the way that it, like, serve the story. Don't serve the, like, that, I don't know, point that you're trying to prove or trying to be the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, hard agree.
Yeah. And so that's kind of my I also just think like the whole film, I think a lot of people read it as like a critique of voyeurism.
Really?
To me, I look at it and I'm like, clearly this is a film made by a voyeur about a voyeur.
Yeah.
Period.
And every character in it is like very intrigued.
Yeah.
Like
and,
they're all they
so
may
start by being like, oh, we shouldn't be doing this. But they drop that pretty quickly.
Oh.
And they're
totally.
And they're validated by the narrative. Yeah. It is revealed that this was the right thing for them to be doing.
Yeah.
So to me, the idea that it's somehow about the dangers or like the problematic seduction of voyeurism, it just feels silly.
That's not how I felt about it.
It just feels silly to me.
So
there's my film theory hot takes for you.
Boom.
Quick mic drop on Laura Mulvey, bitches.
That's crazy that that's where
that's where male gaze came from, which is obviously like something that we still
we talk about.
We can't escape this in the discourse. So
Saltburn. They're talking. Yeah, it's just it's constantly a conversation around every kind of art form these days, and every kind of so I think it's more in conversation than it's ever been.
And so
very cool.
And all of this goes back to Rear Window.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have this essay without Rear Window.
Wow.
We wouldn't have the term
the
male gaze without Rear Window. So thanks Jimmy.
Wow.
Thanks Jimmy.
He was looking at you, Jimmy.
Oh no.
Different actor, I know this.
So, few cast tidbits. Songwriter's apartment. You remember seeing him across the way? 2 facts about that. One, that's where Hitchcock's cameo comes up in this film. You know, he's always got to do a Hitchcock cameo. If you watch it again, I think the first time we see the songwriter's apartment, there is a man repairing a grandfather clock in the background, and it's Hitchcock.
Why would he give himself that cameo?
It's fascinating.
He should have put him in a little cameo with a little umbrella.
An umbrella, sitting in a chair.
Like a repairman? I don't know. He seems like he'd be like, I don't want to be a I don't know why I can't do his voice. He seems like he wouldn't want to be a repairman. But okay, cool. So
Yeah.
repairman. Hitchcock, got it.
Clock repairman. And that songwriter in that apartment is actually the real-life creator of Alvin and the Chipmunks. So that's
Whoa.
weird. That's
Okay.
weird. Isn't that bizarre?
Had he created it at the time?
Yeah,
When did that come?
I think
that's old.
I think so. 1954?
Those chipmunks are old.
I think the chipmunks were around at this point.
Are
I'm
they
pretty
still
sure.
the same chipmunks we have today? I don't think their lifespan's that long.
Chipmunks must have
Dad joke.
pretty short lifespan.
How many chipmunks did it take to get to where we are today?
How many chipmunks are sitting inside our human costumes?
How many chipmunks
today,
are in my brain right
puppeting
now?
us?
Just ripping it apart.
Whoever guesses closest to the correct number of chipmunks wins the prize.
Gets nothing.
Gets nothing. Cast tidbits.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Apparently, Grace Kelly had quite a reputation at this point. Everybody knew that she
I don't know.
She was infamous for sleeping with married men. This was her thing, Princess Grace.
Oh,
and
my
so
goodness.
Jimmy Stewart's wife was so worried about them filming this together.
Wouldn't you?
Of course.
Honestly, I think I would just be like at her the whole day. But you know,
yeah.
Oh my gosh,
I would just be like, as long as I can join in.
Can you imagine like her scenes? If you look off to the side, just every wife lined up, just watching.
Oh, don't worry.
No.
Yeah. So Jimmy Stewart's wife was so upset by this idea that she was so convinced that they were going to sleep together on set that she basically camped out on set the entire time to supervise them.
Oh, bless her. Oh, wow. She probably has never seen this movie.
Probably not, which is hilarious because also, do you know about the whole Hitchcock Grace Kelly thing where... So Hitchcock...
Sorry, I was slurping coffee.
Perfect.
No. Grace Kelly Hitchcock
Yeah,
thing?
he was...
Oh, God. Oh, no.
He was in love with her.
Well, duh.
He was, like, obviously obsessed with her. And, you know, there's, like, this trope of the Hitchcock blonde, this icy Hitchcock blonde. And there's pretty universal agreement that it's based on Grace Kelly and that he was essentially trying to recreate her and every other woman he cast after that point. You can see, have you seen Vertigo?
No.
Okay, when you watch Vertigo, there's a lot of previews of Vertigo in this film where, like, the way her hair is done, there's like a close up on this twist in Grace Kelly's hair that's recreated almost exactly.
I totally complimented her hair on this too. I was like, the hair, the dress.
Gorgeous. I mean, this is costumes designed by Edith Head, who's
oh my God, icon,
of course.
Oh my God, Edith Head. I didn't realize that.
She's like the best costume designer of all time. Yeah.
Wow.
Like hands
that
down.
Makes sense.
Everybody knows it.
Yeah.
So that's the incredible, iconic. I love that black and white dress.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
What I wouldn't give.
Yeah, her just standing. I'm so glad that dress had its moment too.
Right?
When she just like poses for a second.
So this costume tidbit that leads me back to the Hitchcock thing. Hitchcock was worried that in the negligee scene where Grace Kelly comes out in her silky PJs, he was worried that she didn't look busty enough. And so he sent her and Edith
Got her a boob job. Just kidding.
There you go. That would be the modern version.
Yeah, absolutely.
He sent her and Edith Head away to pad the costume. And instead they were like, we're going to trick him. And so they just changed the cut of it a little bit and had her adjust her posture and told him that they changed the costume and didn't.
Oh my God,
which I loved. I love some women scheming.
Yeah. Yeah, good on them. That's cute.
Isn't that
a little
cute?
moment. Oh, we got girls
We've got girls. But so...
And he was like, wonderful, fabulous.
Fabulous tits, darling.
Yeah. The boobs are looking great today, honey.
Smashing.
Smashing boobs.
I don't know why my Hitchcock came out as Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah, I think we're just stuck in that right now.
We're in Jimmy land. But so basically, you know, he develops this intense kind of career and art-altering obsession with Grace Kelly.
No.
That it traces through all of his other films. You can see interviews with Jimmy Stewart basically being like, I mean, she was just this magnetic presence on set. Everybody doted on her and loved her. And watching it this time with more awareness of that background, this is such a thirsty movie. This is
Oh, they pan up and down. They got some feet shots.
not
She's
just
like,
that, but
oh
it's
no.
just the way that Grace Kelly's presence is kind of like woven through the film. You can so feel that this is a movie being made by both a director and a lead actor who are deeply in love with her.
Oh.
And like that just
You love to put a lens on a film for me and to rewatch and
this
be like,
is me planting my seed of the episode.
Yeah, it's the seed of the episode. Yeah. Oh man. I mean, I can get it from Hitchcock. I would have to know, like, I feel like I can see that in my head of how that could be portrayed, but I have to watch it from seeing Jimmy's kind of like,
and especially then, like, when you watch Vertigo, come back and tell me about it, because it's a lot of that film is about a man who is obsessed with this icy blonde woman and tries to transform another woman into her image, which is what Hitchcock then does with all of his other actors.
I was gonna say, oh man, he totally like he just puts it right on the screen for us to be like,
it's very autobiographical, and obviously the Hitchcock insert is played by Jimmy Stewart there, so there's just all these different layers of just like this obsessive love/lust that to me it
at
just
least he
knowing that
channeled
now
it in that form and not in real murdery, creepy
thank God
obsession.
But it just I couldn't stop feeling that this time. It's just like it seeps through the movie.
Yeah.
Even in particular, one of the things that really stuck with me this time was that it goes into slow motion on their kiss. It's the only moment of slow motion in the entire film, and it just she leans in, and all of a sudden everything slows down, and we can focus on Grace's lips, and it's just like.
How many times do you think he sat there with the editor and was like, "Yeah, slow it down a little more,
Let's
a little more,
play that again.
a little more,
play that again, Sam."
Yeah. Oh wow.
So
yeah, doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But
so not exactly a hot take, but this
Yeah.
time watching it, I was just like, this is
Just seeing it, that way.
Hitchcock's thirst film. This like it's just that's what
Rear
it
Window,
is.
Hitchcock's thirst film.
Thirst film. Yeah. So
funny.
that's so complex. And of course this is very dark, but you know, Jeffries is injured in a racing car accident at the beginning. That's why his leg is broken. Grace Kelly herself died in a car crash. So there's that.
You're like, you're welcome.
You're welcome. Here's a fun fact.
Cars are dangerous.
Cars are bad. Don't use them.
No. R.I.P.
Shooting took place November 27th, 1953 to January 13th, 1954. So pretty short set span. Told you a little bit about the incredibly complex apartment set. A lot of those hyper detailed, super voyeuristic close-ups had to be filmed by attaching a camera with a very big telephoto lens to a crane, which I hadn't realized. I was like, whoa, that's pretty I've not heard that.
It must have been
done.
so cool to be on that set.
Right? Well, and especially I can only imagine how heavy that lens must have been. Because the one you see Jimmy Stewart using in the film, the giant,
the big one,
iconic lens, is I think a 400 millimeter lens. Correct me if I'm wrong, Travis, but I think it's 400 mil, which in real life, if you were looking through one of those, you could not use that handheld because that's such a great degree of magnification that it would just be jumping
you
up
wouldn't
and
see
down.
any.
You would see absolutely nothing.
Unless he has the steadiest hands in the
goddamn world.
Yeah. World.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hi.
We were too hot for the camera.
We overheated. The camera overheated. This conversation's
getting overheated. As soon as you bring up Hitchcock's obsession for Grace Kelly, all the voyeurs in the room.
Yeah, the camera was too voyeuristic. Yeah. Got too hot and bothered. Yeah. Had to take a break.
Had to be turned off.
Yeah, had to be turned off. Now it's turned back on.
Yeah.
We're back, baby.
We're back. Okay, where were we? Oh yes, my dumb little fact.
Oh, the dumb. Oh, see, it was like no, thank you.
It was like I can't take this, Siena. This idiocy. The address they give isn't a real street address in New York, but the building itself, they based it on a real apartment complex and courtyard, in particular, on Christopher Street in New York City. Which what I wrote is just gay. That's gay. Christopher Street is the middle of the village, Greenwich Village, which is like now the quintessential gay neighborhood, and Christopher Street in particular is like the heart of the most touristy part of it. It's where like the big gay ice cream shop and stuff like that is, which I love. The big gay ice cream.
Is it called the big gay ice
cream? It is.
Yes. Oh my god, I gotta go back to New York.
They've got they have one cone that's like a salty twink or something. I'm probably getting the name wrong.
Oh my god, they better.
Amazing.
If they don't, they better by the time I go.
There you go. Get on it, big gay ice cream.
That checks out.
So just
all these characters are a little queer.
Yeah. So I just loved that's where
that's so
set.
funny.
It just kind of adds another little wrinkle to it.
A little gay wrinkle.
A little gay wrinkle. Unlike most Hitchcock films, how are you doing there, Al? Help. I was like, I'm just gonna try to soldier on, and then I looked over at you and I was like, no, I'm not. I can't.
I'm listening.
Unlike most Hitchcock films, which, you know, he's kind of famous for his collaborations with Bernard Herrmann, who did most of the soundtracks he did Psycho.
Wow. Okay.
A lot of the famous Hitchcock scores. Right. This has almost no soundtrack at all.
I noted that about halfway through. I was like, whoa, there's just nothing.
You don't really notice it until a while in, but it's almost entirely diegetic music. And I actually wrote down it kind of gave me a little bit of like an Altman before Altman vibe, like Robert Altman, the filmmaker. He
jog my memory.
He's one of the things that he's famous for is this overlapping dialogue where like one person's speech gets layered with another person's speech to create this
Greta Gerwig did that in
Lady Bird?
No, not Lady Bird. The March Sisters.
Oh, Little Women. The March Sisters.
I was like, what? The brain is not braining. Yeah, she had like, they'd have like tons of rehearsal. Florence Pugh was like, wait, that's what's supposed to happen? Oh, interesting.
So that's an Altman thing. So it's like a little preview of that, which that becomes more popularized in the 70s. So most of the sounds are diegetic, which means music that the source for it is on screen. So like the music being played by the songwriter, the music coming from somebody else's apartment.
Yeah.
But it also, at a certain point, I realized it starts feeling like, because obviously they're still being very careful about like when you hear a siren, when you hear, you know, noises that have a little bit more of a sense of danger to them. Yeah. And so it starts at a certain point feeling like this almost like atonal score where like the sounds of like street horns and sirens, like those are all pitches. And so at a certain point they start taking up that mental space in a way that I thought was really
That's why it was like about half, and this is like a 2-hour film. So about halfway through I was like, wait a second, I feel like I haven't noticed the void or like the absence of music, but now I'm noticing there isn't any.
Yeah, but the sonic space is still very full,
super full.
And obviously we mentioned this is another Edith Head film for the costume design.
What a baddie.
Just incredible.
Just talk about like the most iconic.
I'm pretty sure Edna from The Incredibles is based on her. I think that's a thing.
Yep, she is.
She did Roman Holiday. She did All About Eve. She did Vertigo. And obviously she gets to have like a little extra fun here because it's a character who's canonically obsessed with fashion, which is part of why Grace Kelly chose this part. She was also up for one in On the Waterfront, but that was a more kind of working class character. And she was like, being Grace Kelly, I feel like I'm better suited to the like high fashion New York City gal. Which,
she's not wrong.
She was right. She was right.
Oh my gosh, how cool.
So just I love that the two of them, these two fashion divas, got to collaborate.
Yeah, they must have had so much fun with fun. I mean, imagine being like a costume designer and you get to dress
Grace Kelly. Yeah.
And then again, imagine being Grace Kelly and then
getting dressed by Edith Head.
So it's just what a like powerful pair, the two of them. And every look of hers was just perfect.
I think she was a real genius at silhouettes in particular, creating these outlines that just through abstract shape tell you about character in ways that are just like fascinating. Where like, you know, Lisa, that gorgeous dress she wears, it's like all tight from like the waist up and very like buttoned up and confined, and then everything lets out, which is kind of what her character does over the course of the movie.
Oh, absolutely. She's so relatable too, I think, for being like so beautiful and like, you know, like what every woman like wants to be. She's literally a princess. So I think the the silhouettes with the softness of it really like added to that character too.
So good.
Yeah.
There's a rumor that the Jeff Lisa romance was based on Ingrid Bergman's fling with Robert Capa while filming the Hitchcock movie Notorious. Which is Hitchcock with Ingrid Bergman. And not only was Capa the man that she had this affair with, a Greenwich Village-based photojournalist, he also had a work-induced leg injury. So seems
a little too
yeah. So I
Wow.
found, again, going back to the like behind the scenes romantic drama and longing.
I can only imagine like Hollywood at this time. Like there's like a lot now.
Yeah.
But
just
damn,
imagine. Back when everything was like more buttoned up and had to be more hidden.
Yeah. Oh, the amount of like
Yeah.
Oh, the drama of it all.
The drama of it all. Famous set tidbit, you know, the scene where the couple are carrying their mattress in the rain. Hitchcock gave each of them, without telling them, opposite instructions of which way to pull the mattress, so their reactions are genuine as they're like struggling over it. Yeah. And Hitchcock was so pleased, he was just cackling in his director's chair across the street, only did one take of it, which was pretty unusual for him.
Perfect.
He was like, got it.
Oh my God, Mwah. That's so cute.
Right? Watch notes. Moving into actual experience with the film this time around. I have like a themes and questions section to start with. I know you hate my questions.
I do.
Luckily for you, this one ends with a question that just says, "Do you feel?"
And I feel?
Great.
Is it really?
Yes.
Do I feel?
Do you feel?
Not today.
Great.
Sometimes too much, sometimes not enough. Thank you for asking.
That's what I'm here for.
Today, feel? No.
No. Tomorrow? Maybe.
Probably.
It's the weekend.
You know what? Done. Because that was the bet. No.
Perfect.
Never ask me another question again.
So I was thinking about the idea of different kinds of horror, which is something that I've brought up on a lot of episodes.
Yes,
I feel like this is one that's playing a lot with guilt and shame, which I don't think is like a horror basis we've had a lot
these
of
are kind of like a different
it's a different thing. It's a different basis. Than a lot of what else we've done. I think a lot of it is to do with creating this sense of complicity between the audience and Jeffries, and then like we are also being voyeurs. We're also invading everybody's private space. So when the climax comes, part of what's scary is that we feel like we too have done something transgressive, and like the intruder kind of has some justification for coming to punish us. Maybe. Do you feel?
Do I feel? No. So because of the way both of these films are done, where we are in this very POV point, like we are the character.
We're Jeffries. And like even the source material, one of the notes I made is that it's written in first person, which I think very much comes across in both films.
Yeah. So it really does put, or like even if you're like you're an accomplice, you're complicit to it. Like what would you do? And I think both these films like allow you that time, and that's why they kind of move in this like slower pace way. It gives you that time to like develop like what would you do
exactly,
at what point would you go over, at what point, like, and so it really kind of asks you that question without directly asking you. And so I do feel
you feel. Conclusion, feel. Travis is just shaking his head at me. Great.
But so I think it in that it like flips it on you, and I think the guilt and shame can kind of be put, but you get the justify. Like both of these have kind of the same outcome of that justification,
and I think
but which only encourages.
It's encouraging you to be a voyeur. But I think part of it, it's like the horror or the fear in this is like a squirmy kind of horror. It's like I'm doing something uncomfortable.
It's also like that if you witness something, or like you think you witness something, like what's the right choice?
What's your responsibility?
So
as a witness?
And it's which is a tough
love. Love a good moral dilemma in a horror film. I also noted that much like The Shining, this is a horror movie that's super obsessed with spatial relations, with interiors versus exteriors, with how rooms connect to each other. And I think whenever that's the case, you've got a bit of this like building his body metaphor going on, particularly in horror.
Well, again, the the director for Disturbia was
Mhm.
like, no, this is
It's
the
the
extension
eye.
of
Yeah,
like this is the
exactly.
character.
Which I thought was also pretty interesting, just given that Hitchcock was pretty demonstrably fascinated by the world of psychoanalysis at the
Mhm.
time. So like he's thinking a lot about the brain,
Yeah.
and picking apart the brain. Um, and let's see. It's also interesting that this is a film that actually puts the director front and center in the credits, which kind of goes into
Mm.
auteur theory, which I'm sure we don't
Yeah.
have to spend a ton of time on that. But it's
Love auteur theory though.
do we?
I mean, I spent a lot of time on it in college and I got A's, baby. So
There
yeah.
you go. Love the A's that come from auteur theory. A for auteur.
The film ABCs.
Well, so something that I was kind of interested in that only really occurred to me this watch is that part of what Jeffries is sort of subconsciously doing as a photographer, which I think this is part of why it only hit me this time now that I'm like an adult who makes movies and not like a child who just watches movies,
Right.
is that part of what he's doing in his boredom is not just investigating a crime, he's also creating things to photograph.
Yeah.
He's creating situations, he's putting Lisa in situations where he has more things to document, to take pictures of.
Yeah.
And that like kind of almost sexual hunger for things to photograph is just really interesting.
Yeah. No, that it totally makes I don't know if you have this in your notes, but just the aspect because he doesn't take when does he start actually taking the photos? It's towards the end. Is it when he comes into the room?
I think it's just when the flash bulbs
which
go
is
off.
so cool.
It's so cool. And that's something I noted that that doesn't exist anywhere in the original. There's all of the light play in both of these films are film editions, which I think is it's the mark of a great adaptation, finding something that can only really have that impact in the new medium, something so visual.
Yeah. There wasn't that moment in Disturbia. It was just the camera movements, like of the actual like.
That's true.
Started to get a little bit like chaotic at
That's
the end,
true.
and that's the only time we really see that such fast edits and such. There was just a lot of movement with the camera. But yeah, we never got that like satisfaction towards the end.
I think there is a point though where the light from the camera becomes a plot point in Disturbia, though, right? Where there's some sort of like a flashing light from the camera. I think. I need to go back and check that, but I remember there being like a similar.
My brain went blank on
moment.
That. Okay.
Last question for you.
Yes, oh no.
What do you make of the idea of this change from a single male character in the short story to two women in the film? That adaptation choice, because I
didn't read the thing.
Fair.
You did this because you sent me it, and I was like, I'm gonna read this with every intention to read it.
You're like,
and then I woke up this morning and I was like, oh, hope Siena doesn't ask me questions about the adaptation.
I will. I mean, it feels to me very much like Stella and Lisa are kind of two halves of the same coin. Like their characters feel connected to me.
Yeah. Well, they all kind of like it's like the spectator ship of it all versus having like one. I think having the crowd of it all. But you feel like is the question about them specifically together?
Kind of what them being women brings to the story, because that in particular,
are they not the common sense element of this? Because that's how I saw them.
You're not wrong.
It's like, you bring in here's my thing, if those were two men, right, so just like the friend in Disturbia, the male friend in Disturbia, like I don't know if I'd trust that narrative.
As Grace Kelly says, we need the female intuition.
Yeah. And so I kind of just see them as like the women are important in this because they're the common sense of it all. And it's like they're who I trust. I feel like that's who I would look to be like, is this? So I don't know.
Wrong.
I feel like having that and having the two, like, is what's her name supposed to be like a little bit older?
Yeah.
Too. So it's like, oh, the old wise, like no nonsense, like I'll give it to you how it is versus like, the romantic interest.
I wrote down that it felt very much like this like maiden mother crone thing where it's like we've got the maiden and the mother, and it's like it almost feels like Stella is Lisa older, like they've got such similar
and they their connection too just in the film, like as actors, I think is so great.
Totally.
But yeah, the common sense.
I also, just thinking about the shooting style, I loved that the camera's almost always on a level with Jeffries, which goes to that kind of first person associating us with him. But because of that, we're almost always looking up at Grace Kelly. She's almost always looking down at us.
Yeah.
Because he's in a chair and she's often kind of sweeping in from her night out on the town with her lobster. And so when they disagree, when they have fights, the camera moves even lower, so she gets higher. And it's only when he's explaining his theory of what happened next door to Lisa, and she starts buying it and goes, okay, tell me again from the beginning, that the camera like rises up and puts them on the same level, which I thought was really, I love moments like that where the camera really tells you what's going on with the power dynamics, where Lisa wears the pants of this relationship.
Oh, yeah.
She's in charge.
Yeah.
She's, yeah.
Good
She's the top.
She's the top.
I just have a few tiny little miscellaneous notes of things that I thought were fun. In the short story, the way that instead of the flashbulbs, the thing that Jeffries uses to like escape the killer, it's so dumb, and I just needed to share it with you because it's so dumb. No. He's living in like a fully furnished apartment that he like got with other people's furniture in it, and there's this like plaster bust. And so when the guy sneaks in, he turns all the lights off, puts his head to the side, puts the plaster bust on his shoulders.
Oh my God, like,
so,
here's my
head, covers it with a blanket so that when the guy shoots him, he shoots the plaster bust.
Oh,
and then
Lord.
He uses that moment to like grab him and attack
Bamboozled.
him. Bamboozled. I was just like, that is so unbelievable.
Like a little Three Stooges cartoon.
I know. Like,
Looney Tunes.
If you tried to film that, it would just be funny.
Yeah.
It would just be funny. I also there's so many things you can see here that are previews of other things that Hitchcock will go on to make. I know I touched on a few of the Vertigo things, but there's also, there's Jimmy Stewart falling out the window. We get that shot in Vertigo too. Like that
cool.
identical shot basically starts the film. The idea that Stella says that, the murderer must have cut her up in the bathtub scene. I'm like, it's Psycho.
Oh yeah.
Like there's so many
little Easter eggs and like foreshadows
of future Hitchcock. And to me, I think that's maybe part of why this film has got the longevity that it has, is as we talk about with auteur theory, you see directors go back to the same ideas over and over again. And this one feels like it has almost all of the Hitchcock seeds for what go on to be his other great movies are all planted here in Rear Window.
That's so cool.
That's the note I'm going to end us on. There's plenty of other stuff to talk about here. Could talk about how much I hate Laura Mulvey for many more hours, but
that was awesome. It was fun to watch these two.
Yeah, it was a good sort of low key post holiday pairing.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, just hanging out at home. Yeah. Which is what we all did.
Exactly. And speaking of post-holiday pairings, do you want to tell
two
people what we're up to next
so
episode?
we got two coming at you next episode. So I'm going to be covering You Were Next, which was a 2011 film. I feel like that was kind of the start of another like meta wave of horror. Totally. And then paired with that, Siena's doing...
I'm covering the original Last House on the Left, which is Wes Craven's first feature. I adore it for a lot of different reasons, and it's also one of the not necessarily the first, but one of the earliest slashers, which we wanted to talk about. We felt like we've done a lot of psychological horror. We want to do some more gore, and so we're like, let's dive into some slasher fun. Yeah, so that's
I'm
the
excited.
kind of splatter.
Your Next is like, oh my gosh. I
haven't seen it.
Movie.
And you haven't seen mine, right?
Also, like, I'm really just saying in the Saltburn era.
Yep.
Okay, that's my last time. So with that, thank you for listening to Splice and Splatter,
the film podcast presented by the Jean Cocteau Cinema, owned by author George R.R. Martin in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Where classic horror
meets modern horror. You switched it up on me, Al.
Sorry.
You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok at Splice Splatter Pod. We also have full episodes on our Patreon at patreon.com/GRRM.
That's where all the episodes are. And then every other episode is on our YouTube that we now have at Splice Splatter Pod.
Indeed. And that one has "and" spelled out as a word rather than...
Yeah, not the ampersand. Can't do that.
Can't do an ampersand on YouTube for whatever reason. So
then we would like to thank our producer, Warren Langford, there in the back, giggling at some of our craziness today.
I love that we actually made Warren laugh today. I don't know whether that's a good sign or a bad sign,
we'll find out
something.
Later.
Thank you, Travis, for all of your patience behind the camera lens. Thank you to Theo Schaefer for the amazing music. I still get it stuck in my head all the time. Can hear it playing over us now.
And thank you, everyone, for bearing with us on this one, even though we have chipmunks
a
running around in our brain.
Again, take a guess at how many chipmunks.
And with that,
we'll be right back.
I had fun this
My
one.
life.
I had fun with this. Look at me. I had so much fun. Everyone heard about my Holes fanfic multiple times.
I can't believe we outed our
Cutting
fanfics
camera.